changer?
I think for me is keep your menu small.
Yes. Why is that important?
Do your greatest hits. Do your greatest hits. Any opener for big bands, right? They don't go and do like, oh, here's some new songs I'm gonna try. No, you do your greatest hits. And understand that you're in the opener. Like, you're not the main act. So it's cool. Do your greatest hits. That's what we did. So we kept the menu to like 6 items.
I was just going to say what's small. It's relative. So
6 maybe 7 items, and be okay with selling out. You want to sell
This
out.
episode is brought to you by Restaurant Systems Pro.
With excitement, allow me to introduce to you today's guest, chef, owner of Hilltribe Restaurant Group, Yia Vang. Yeah, you feeling unstoppable today?
Little bit, yeah.
Having a rough day, are you?
Yeah, it's been a rough last 24 hours.
Oh,
so.
man. Well, hopefully nothing bad happened. Maybe you're just busy. I hope that's all the case.
Yeah, busy, and then we have, a bunch of other stuff coming up this week, so yeah.
You have a lot going on, man. Like a lot. You're on TV. You have a podcast. You have 2 brick and mortars and a pop-up. Like, what?
Yeah, we have a brick and mortar coming. We have Hmong Kitchen, which is in Gray's Food Hall, which is a stall. We just call it our little shop because you call it a stall, it makes it sound like a horse stall,
right?
And then we have where we are here, which is where we do our rotating pop-ups right here.
Yeah, and I love it because it's unconventional. And I think the other thing that I picked up on is you are also really great at growing a brand.
Thanks.
And putting yourself out there and telling your story. So we have a lot to unpackage today, man. I can't wait to dive into who you are and how you got to where you are today and where you're headed. But let's get that motivational, inspirational ball rolling with a success quote or a mantra. What do you got for us?
I think the mantra is the one we use for our restaurants. And so every dish has a narrative, and then the next part to that is we say every dish has a narrative, and you follow that narrative long enough and close enough, you get to the people behind the food. And once you're there, it's not about the food, it's about people.
Yes, dude.
And
we are cut from the same cloth. Keep going. I think
and then the last part, we always say that food is a catalyst into cultivating great relationships.
Food is a catalyst into cultivating great relationships, dude.
Yeah,
yes,
and
man.
And the way that we word that is a friend of mine, Ming Jing Tong. He's he works with like building vision, mission, values, and goals, and he has a consulting company. And the reason why we worded that way was like I wanted the word catalyst. I love that word because it's spark. It's on a molecular level, like what is a catalyst? So you get to learn about that from a molecular level, but like even the word catalyst, and and that I really do believe that food is a catalyst into cultivating a relationship,
dude.
Because you can start relationship, you can end relationship, but what keeps relationship going is the cultivation of it.
Have you seen Chimp Empire by any chance?
Chimp Empire?
Chimp Empire. It's on Netflix. It just recently came out within the past couple of weeks. It's a documentary that follows the story and the lives of these chimps in the jungle. I can't remember the name of the jungle. I'm gonna pronounce it wrong if I even try. But it's basically just like ridiculous videography. Like 4K, amazing shots.
Yeah.
So supposedly like these people, these videographers, these scientists like live in the jungle.
Wow.
So like the chimps kind of just treat them like a bird, like
yeah,
they're just
it's like
another animal.
yeah.
They're like those guys. Yeah. So they act the way they would normally act, and these videographers are just capturing all this stuff. Where I'm going with this is that they talk about the behaviors of the monkeys and why they do certain things, and the act of the hunt and going to get the monkey out of the tree. So chimps eat monkeys.
Yeah. It's not as cute as everyone thinks.
Right.
Yeah. Everyone's like, oh, cute chimps. I'm like, nah, man.
But the whole process of going to get the food and who gets the food and then what you do with that food is all social. It's all like it's all basically. It's how you become the alpha, and it's who you choose to give that food to manage your. This is where I'm going with all this. And why I'm saying chimps is because we share 98% of our DNA with chimps. A lot of what they do in the jungle is what we do in business. You know what I'm saying? So like they
exactly why I throw poop at people.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm saying is like if you study anthropology and the study of us and human behavior and just animal behavior, there's a lot of overlapping things, and they are very selective about if they kill a monkey, who they give the food to. They're growing social ties, and they're prioritizing the hierarchy. And I'm not saying that's what we do in hospitality, but there's a level of truth there with how we treat food and how we've treated food over time. And I think we can learn a lot by like looking at our past, man. And you're right. Behind every great restaurant, it's a great person, and that's where the story is.
Yeah, and that's what Hmong food is about.
Yeah,
like we say with Hmong food, we always say our cultural DNA is intricately woven into the foods that we eat as Hmong people. So if you want to know our people, you got to know our food.
I love it,
because our food tells the story of our people.
Yeah, man. I think I know I'm going to really enjoy this conversation. I'm already enjoying it. So where does it make sense to start sharing your story? Take us back to the beginning.
I don't know, man. Do you want me to like go from the beginning or?
Yeah, well, I mean, I know. I mean, I think it's worth talking about your heritage because it has so much to do
for sure
with how you got here and what you're doing today. So take us back to the beginning.
Yeah, I never wanted to be a cook, hands down. It was just one of those things where it's like, I figured out when I started working in kitchens as a teenager, I figured out like a system hack, for example, it's like, oh, if I put this and this together or if I lined up my, my station like this, it makes it easier, so it's just
mise en place.
Yeah. Basic mise en place kind of, and it's like, how do I make this easier? How do I create my, especially on the line, how do I create my world where I don't have to move that much, so that's what I was more interested in that than actually the food. I did not like working in restaurants because you basically work second shift. You would actually work when your friends play. Think about it, you know? And so like in college, it'd be like Friday night, your buddies are all going out doing stuff. And they're like, hey, where are you at? I'm like, dude, working, man. And so it was like one of those things where I just never really, it was like, ugh, this job is just whatever. And it was also, in a way, it was a self-punishment thing. Because like I wasn't good at anything else, like school-wise. Like I wasn't the greatest studious person. But it's like, yeah, I'm like decent here. I can keep up with the tickets, I don't think I was ever really that good of a cook. I think I just kept up with the tickets well, And it's the same thing. Working the line it's creating a system. If you can create a system and you follow that system, when that ticket comes in, then you're doing okay. And the other thing, too, is especially as a young line cook, showing up. You just got to show up. That's it.
There's so much truth to that. It's putting hours in, and it's practice.
You got to show up.
Think about the greatest in the world. Yeah. Why are they the greatest? Because they showed up the most, and they put the most practice in. And, there's some natural ability that's played into that, but it's literally getting the repetitions in. And in order to get those repetitions, you got to show up.
So I think that right now there's this big emphasis on, like, if you're a young person, you should be like some, I don't know, wonderkind type, like some like, oh, yeah, by the age of 16, you should be, like, doing things that Eric Repair is doing, And it's like, nah, man, he put 40 years in. Like, he showed up.
And I think that gets a lot of people in trouble because they try to be Eric Repair out of the gates.
Yep.
And they don't realize that Eric had to climb a ladder.
Oh, yeah.
And they get themselves in financial debt because they're trying to, it doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah. I think that there's this glorification of, like, success where it's like, boom, it happens. It's like, nah, man. Like, I know plenty of people who've put in that 40 years and, quote, unquote, it didn't happen, And so, like, what do you do in those situations? So, for me, I learned, looking back on it as a young kid, it was working in line, working on the line, it was show up. This is when your shift starts. Go in. I was talking I spoke at a culinary school, and all these young kids were asking, like, well, what makes you a great cook? Like, if we're a young person, like, wants to be cook, like, what makes a great cook? And I go, show up, and be very blunt. Show up, shut up, and listen, learn, glean, And so, I did that not because I knew what I was doing. I just did that as like a default. Like, I'm not gonna, I just want to learn, And then, me in kitchen and restaurant world was kind of, it's like that relationship where it's like every like 6-7 months you break up, but then you get back together like 3 months later, then you break that back up, and you're like, I don't know why, I don't even, like, I hate you, and then 3 months later you're like, what's going on? Like, what are you doing? And I always joke about it. It's like going away to college and you break up with that high school sweetheart, but then when you go back to like when it's like the summertime, you go back and you're like, what are you doing this summer? Are you still gonna work down by the pool? Like,
you gonna be around?
Yeah, right. And I just did that for like 15 years,
So you did that until you were about 30 years old. Because you said you were like 15 when you started working?
Yeah, so I was 15. I did that until I was probably like late 20s, but always like having other jobs in between, because it would always be like, oh, like so I graduated the degree in interpersonal communication and minored in PR.
It's a great skill to have in the restaurant industry.
Yeah, right. Minored in PR and marketing, and I remember when I came to visit the cities, because I was a Wisconsin boy. When I came to visit the Twin Cities, I saw the IDS building. I'm like, one day I'm going to be a big boy and have a real job and work up in that big building, And that was kind of my thoughts, like freshman year of college, coming up here. And And it was just one of those things where it's like, I can't sit still. Like
You're still working in the big buildings, but on the floor level.
Yeah, for the people who work upstairs in the big building and they come and buy a sandwich. So I ended up doing all these jobs that like weren't kitchen jobs. Like, for example, one job I had in college was I was actually working as like a child protective services, with them, where I would go do unannounced stops at homes of people that were under investigation by CPS. And my job was like random time. I had my list. Random time I knock on their house and there's a safety check. Hey, how are you doing? Hey, and you just talk to people.
Yeah.
And they know why you're there. But you know why you're there. But it's never anything accusatory. It's just, it's grown-ups who aren't responsible, and now they're under this investigation. And I would stop in, and then I would just document. No, I love that job because I was in the car all the time, driving around. I kept my own schedule, it really helped me learn to talk to people. So when you talk to people, sometimes you start seeing that, look, the file might say this. It might be black and white on the file, but when you get to meet people, they're no longer a file. Like you're seeing that this mom is struggling and she's trying her hardest. You're seeing the big picture. Yep, she's trying her hardest.
Not just what's on paper.
Yep, and she made one decision one night, to either, drink too much, drugs, whatever, one night because she wanted an escape because she was like, I'm tired of all the crime. One decision, one night, and that's when, authorities were brought in.
Right.
So I started hearing all these different stories. Now, there are plenty of other stories where it's like, you shouldn't have a child, definitely. But anyways, that's what I do. And then it'd be like when I was like sick of that, I'm like, I go back to the restaurant, I guess. And it wasn't until I moved up to the Twin Cities, probably like 11, 12 years ago.
Where are you from originally? Wisconsin?
Yeah, I'm a Wisconsin boy. Yep.
Well, originally
in Thailand. Yep. Yeah. So born in Vinai refugee camp in Thailand. Moved here in '88. We ended up
How
moving.
old were you when you moved here?
4, about to turn 5, and then we went out east. We moved out east to Pennsylvania, Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, living with Mennonites and Amish, which I loved growing up because the white kids were like, "What are you?" And we're like, "We're Hmong," and they're like, "That's weird. Are you Chinese?" And we're like, "No." "Are you Japanese?"
Really
No. And then they would be like, so it was us and the Amish and Mennonite kids that became friends because we were like the quote unquote weird kids from the white kids, and so we ended up out there until like my middle school years. Moved back to Central Wisconsin, graduated high school there, went to UW La Crosse, and went to college there, and so eventually moved up here. My mom's side of the family's up here, so we came up here a lot. St. Paul, east side St. Paul, so that's where a lot of Hmong families are. So we come visit up a lot. So I always felt like it was part of me was up here.
So your mom's side of the family, so you were born in Thailand. You came here. Did your mom already have family in the States?
Yep. Okay. Yep. So that was how we got here because my grandparents were here, my uncles were here, and so they were our quote unquote sponsors.
Got it.
So that's kind of. In 1980, they had the Refugee Resettlement Act that was passed. So a lot of the from the late 70s to the early 90s, that's where majority of the Hmong families came to this area because of a lot of immigration relocation nonprofit groups were here that they opened up. A lot of churches opened up their homes. Some like churches in the burbs, they opened up their homes and they were able to sponsor families to come over.
Got it. Thanks for the kind of the big picture backstory. So you eventually find yourself in the Minneapolis, St. Paul area. I give myself about like an hour or less to do research. I try not to know too much because I don't want to steer the conversation too much. I want to listen more than steer. But it sounds like you were working all over the place. How many restaurants would you say you worked in from the time moving up here and like being on and off to like being like, this is my career. This is what I want to do.
Yeah. So I started out like for this really big, like ginormous catering company, right? Managing this small little account. Didn't work well there, because it was just like, you open up and stuff in cans and, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it didn't work well. Then I ended up being the church lunch lady for this really big church here called Bethlehem.
You were the lunch lady?
Bethlehem Baptist Church, yeah. So the lady was quitting, or she was retiring because she's like 65, gotcha. Right? And then they had a job opening, and I was attending church there, and I'm like, yeah, I'll totally do it. And it was funny because I met with the lead HR person, Joby, and she was like, yeah, when I look at your resume, you're kind of overqualified for this job. So your job is every Wednesday you put on together what's called a fellowship meal, because on Wednesdays they would have kids programs and, children's choir rehearsal. And so instead of the parents like going home and making food and then coming back to the church for this, it was a really big church, like 4,000 people, right? So it's like, well, we create like a little what we call fellowship meal here, and you just, it's like salad bar, grilled cheese sandwiches, whatever. And in the past, that's what they did. And they're like, well, you can come in and, like make sure that's all set up, and you coordinate with volunteers to come do dishes. So it's like little 10-year-old kids will come do dishes. And then it's like once in a while, like once a month, there's some event going on at church, so you help coordinate, like make some like casserole or whatever. It's like, you're a little overqualified for this job. And I think for me, I was just like, I just need something different.
So are you like in your early 20s at this point?
Oh, dude, I was like mid-20s.
Mid-20s?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was done with college.
You're like 41, 40
no,
right now?
I'm 38.
38. Okay.
Yeah.
I messed my math up.
No.
So you're about my age. So, so mid-20s.
Yeah.
When did you start to think like, okay, like, well, actually just get, like, I like to use this analogy. Just get in an airplane and zoom up to 30,000 feet.
Yeah.
We're flying over your life.
Yep.
We see it, but we're not getting into any of the details.
Yeah.
So just kind of take us along the stops, like the route. Do that for me.
Yeah.
So
So this is kind of part of it, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So I become really good friends with one of the pastors. His title is pastor of neighborhood outreach. So basically, in a weird way, he's the party pastor. Because how do you reach the neighborhood, right? This is in South Minneapolis. How do you reach a neighborhood? Well, you put together events. So one day, if we reverse back, there was a bunch of Bible students from Myanmar that came through. And so they wanted to do this big dinner for them. And they came to me, they're like, hey, yeah, we have an idea for a big dinner. We were thinking of ordering Olive Garden, and you can just set them out for them. And I'm like, okay, I'm the new kid here, but I'm just going to say this. If you have a bunch of Bible students from Myanmar that's here, and you guys want to honor them, Olive Garden is not the way to go.
Right.
So I go, here, the cultures of Myanmar and the food and the flavor of Myanmar is kind of like Hmong food. Because it's in that same region. If you would allow me, let me present you a menu that we would do. So I went, and they're like, sure, whatever. And so I went and I got all these things that I know, and I read up on Myanmar, culture, food. It's basically kind of the same as Hmong, kind of in that region. So I made all these things, and I presented to them. They're like, oh, wow, this is actually really good. And then through that, one of the pastors, Ming Jin Tong, who we were like really good friends now, he like ran in and like came into the kitchen that afternoon. He goes, dude, are you the new guy? And then he kind of just like hugged me and goes, can we be friends? And because that's what he's been always trying to do.
Right.
He's his background, he's Taiwanese. So his background is like, this is like food. The church 100 years ago was called the first Swedish church of, whatever. So it's a predominantly white church. And he goes, I feel like I'm so heard. Through that, we started doing these things where it's like, hey, they did this thing called Crowded House, where it's like, we take the back yard of, like one of the church members' house, and we turn it into a pop-up. But at that time, we didn't know it was called pop-up.
Right.
So one time we're like, hey, let's just make a big like cauldron of pho back here, and let's just do that.
Were you selling these things to raise money?
So not really.
Okay.
So my salary was covered by the church, and then we were able. And all we charged was $5. That's just to get in.
To cover, okay.
And that $5 literally covered the food and the drinks.
Got it. So
That's
you weren't trying to profit. You're just trying to throw a party and do it at a break even.
Absolutely. But the point of it was to bring the community together. So it wasn't like, and again, we're working through a church here, so it's not like we're going to make money for the church. No. It was, everything was already budgeted, and the food needed to be covered. So $5 at about 250 people that shows up and takes over a backyard, especially in, South Minneapolis where, where not a lot of people gather at night. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It was really cool because the neighbors would come on and goes, what's going on? And we're like, hey, you got to join us. So it's this idea of like, there was no sitting room. There's nowhere to sit. We just had high top tables. And then for an extra $20, you can come in early and I'll demo the whole meal for you. And that's where I kind of started learning how to like talk in front of people. Okay. Doing that audience thing. So all of this is after the church gig, I got into a few of the restaurants, started working at some of the different restaurants.
At this point, are you like, this is what I want to do with my life?
Nope.
Or are you still trying to okay.
Nope. At this point,
it's still your summer girlfriend.
Yes. At this point, I felt, and this is me being, I don't think I've ever said this on air before, but I didn't do well in school.
Yeah,
I didn't do well in school. I know how much my mother and my father wanted all their children to do well in school and get that postgraduate degree and like work your way up the education ladder.
A lot of people who don't do well in school do really well in the restaurant industry.
Yeah, and that's what I found out later. But I felt there was a part of a shame of me because I started realizing how much they gave up for us. And why couldn't I just do well in school?
I just sacrifice for
you.
Yeah.
Yep. And like, why couldn't I just do well in school? Like, I'm not a dude that can read a book, write a paper. Like,
do you have learning disabilities?
I don't know. Like, I feel like I don't know. I never went through the quote unquote test of anything, but it was just like I just don't do well with testing. I freak out, you know. So
Anxious.
I just don't. Yeah, and just the way that the school system is set up, it's very classical.
Standardized.
Yeah, and I get it.
If you don't fit into the mold, you're a dummy.
Nothing wrong with that. Like, to me, I'm like, it is what it is, right? It's just like my father also taught us growing up, like, you don't make excuses. Like, you work, like, from a farming perspective, you work the field, you keep plowing, you keep moving forward, right? And that's always been like, I'm too dumb to know when to quit, and I get that from him. And so I've always felt like me working in the kitchen was my penance, was my way of punishing myself, because I didn't do well in school.
This is what I deserve. This
is all you deserve. This is all you're amount to. So it was this sense of failure. You're working here. You're serving people food. You failed. Like, all the quote unquote successful people. And this is something I've learned in the last like 10 years through therapy and stuff. I mean, I've learned myself. It's like now you have to sit there. You make this food, and people who have money will come sit. The rich people, the successful people, the people who did do well in schools, all the lawyers and the doctors, they sit at a table, and you sit in the back of this room, and you make this food, it's given to them, and they buy it, and they're never going to know who you are because you chose to like not do well at school. So this was this thing where I was like, okay, this is my lot in life. This is what I'm going to do. And I remember my mom saying to me, my dad saying to me, he said, we did not come to this country so that we can see you work with your hands and work and then work in pain and suffering. And my dad would always say, I did that. Your mom and I did that. So you would be able to sit at a corner office in a big high rise and sign people's checks for them and tell them what to do. That's what we want for you. Now, the Western, side of Yia looks at that and goes, oh, whatever, Mom, Dad, let me live my own life, right? The Hmong side of Yia goes, I get what you're saying. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
I totally get it.
I get what you're saying. It's not Dad wasn't telling me be better.
I mean,
no. I totally get what he was saying.
Yeah. I mean, I get it because my parents worked in the restaurant industry.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was 3 years old when they opened the restaurant, and I remember having dreams of opening my own restaurant and telling them when I was like, 8, 9, 10, 11, and they're like, no.
Yep.
We're doing this so you don't have to.
Absolutely.
So like it translates, for sure. And I think that's human nature, is that we want better for our kids. And
Absolutely.
I think we also don't realize how hard that desk job is.
Yep.
And I think we think it's better to sit behind a desk sometimes. And I don't know if I could ever do that personally. I've had desk jobs. I hate it. I hate desk jobs. I'd rather drive across the country. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I like. I'd rather work in a kitchen and have that camaraderie. So I think there's also a falsehood of like, you're happier if you have a desk job. You're happier when you're telling other people what to do. And I don't know if that's true either.
Absolutely. And so for me, I felt like this is fair, so I'll just work restaurants. And it changed when my friendship with Ming Jin Tong grew deeper and deeper. And he was the one who really just said to me, he's like, hey, like, this is not a failure. This is where a path you're on. Like, so let's embrace it.
No, Ming, was he the Taiwanese man that you met? Okay.
Yep. Yeah, he was a pastor at that time. He was a pastor of this church, and so I would just go over his house, and like I got to know him, his family real well, his kids. Like, it's weird because like when I met his kids, they were like little kids, and now they're like in high school and driving. I'm like, so weird, dude. Like, I used to help you tie your shoes. Now they're like, you're giving me rides to places. Super weird, dude.
That's weird.
So I ended up, we were talking, and, I love the restaurant world, don't get me wrong, but physically, health-wise, I wasn't doing well. Like the whole, like pulling these 10, 12-hour days, it's like I need to get myself fixed physically, And so I'm like, what am I going to do after? And Tong was like, here's the deal. Like, what about you just do a pop-up? And so a friend of mine, Eddie Wu, east side St. Paul. He had this place called Cook St. Paul. And Cook St. Paul, it's a diner. It's a Korean American diner. And during the evening time, it was open. And he just got done reading Danny Bowen's book, Mission. Danny Bowen put a cookbook out, Mission. It's about how they started pop-ups.
Okay.
Yeah, in the Bay Area.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
That's kind of where, I think pop-ups have been kind of
Mission
happening.
Chinese food.
That's what it is. Mission Chinese. Yep. I think I am familiar with that story.
So he just got done reading that. So he's like, oh. And it was kind of this kind of like this collision of us meeting
What's
each other.
the year now?
2017? 16, 17?
So like 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I remember 16, 17, something like that. And I remember going, hey, man, do you think we can do this at your place? Like, yeah, sure. And so we got it all planned out. And then there was this food writer. Her name is Mecca Boss. She's an incredible food writer. And she, at that time, City Pages was still going on. So it was a publication, which is now The Racket. And she's like, hey, I got a piece I want to write about Hmong food or, Hmong pop-up. And she's like, can I do it on you? And I'm like, yeah, dude, here's the deal. Like, we haven't done one yet. We're planning on one. She goes, yeah, it's cool. Let's just do it. And she calls me, and literally this is supposed to be like a 10-minute call, kind of like she's going to write a little like piece. So it turns to be like a 2-hour conversation, right?
Those are the best kind of conversations.
Yeah. And she's like, so what? What's the name of the pop-up? And I'm like, like, we didn't make up a name yet, right? And I was like, I don't know. And so I talked to Tong, and we were like literally at his dinner table at his house. And I'm like, hey, man, so we kind of need a name. And we're like, it was so cheesy because it was like, we're talking about what's the vision, what's the mission, what's the values, and what are the goals of this pop-up. And I kind of somehow between us, we said, well, like food unites people together.
Yes.
And I'm like, and we're like, he's like, what we silly we call it, Union Kitchen? And I'm like, yeah, Union Kitchen. And we looked at each other like, Union Kitchen. Yeah. The reason why we didn't go Union Hmong Kitchen right away was I was still very embarrassed.
Is it Hmong Union Kitchen or
no Union Hmong Kitchen?
Oh, I got that backwards.
Yep. So UHK. So we didn't put the Hmong in there until later because I was afraid that if white people saw the word Hmong, they're like, well, what kind of food is that? Should we even want to go? And so it was Union Kitchen because it was a very quote unquote white name.
Got it.
But then they're like, oh, what is it? It's Hmong food, And so eventually, our LLC is Union Kitchen LLC, doing business as Union Hmong Kitchen.
Got it.
And then when we were able to put Hmong in there, a friend of mine who was a PR director, a white dude, Jewish guy, he said, dude, put it in there. And I guarantee you people will come. And I'm like, I don't know, man. It's easy for you to say.
Well, I think around this time, 2007 to 2020, there was this crazy transformation in the American palate because we started sharing. We had social media and like people became thrill seekers, like culinary thrill seekers. Yep. And they wanted to try different culture. It was exciting to get different perspectives.
One of the greatest things that happened to us was it was the birth of excuse me. It was like this birth of foodie influencers.
Yeah. And
so we were doing pop-ups, and at that time around here, like the word pop-ups, people were like, wait, what is it? Excuse me. And then what would happen is these people who are these influencers or whatever that are like juggernauts now were just starting out then. And they were just incredible people that were like loved culture. Right. And at that time, it wasn't about a clout. It was literally like, this is so cool. This is in this part of St. Paul nobody really knows about. And we're going to come in. And they weren't even coming in and goes, hey, by the way, if I put a post up, can you pay me $200? Yeah, no, it was nothing that. It was like, this is really delicious, and I want to tell people.
Yes, that's what it should be about.
And these, these quote-unquote influencer now. And what's funny is because like they would never call themselves influencers. That's what I respect.
People call me an influencer, and I was like, please don't call me an influencer.
And that's why I respected so much about it. And they would come in, they were like, we just want to know the story, man.
Yeah.
And so we started out doing like quote-unquote Hmong food that you would find around here. And then I was just like, it's like wearing an itchy sweater, man. It's just like, it itches, it fits, but doesn't. And I just said, look, what if Union Hmong Kitchen was the gateway into understanding Hmong food? And so at that time, so this, again, more of the details. At that time, a little bit of publication here and there. We were, I was feeling like I was on top of the world. It was like me and my cousin were the only ones doing this. We're just running around, it's super janky. I had a 20 2001 RAV4 at 300,000 miles that was dying. So you always play a game every time you turn it on. You're like, okay, is today the day? It's today the day. You're pushing.
Put wagers on it.
Yeah. And that's what. And then we put this little like yakitori grill that was like half falling apart that we bought off of Amazon for $100 in the back. And we would hop from either farmers markets or breweries, and we sell little chicken skewers and be like, oh, come to our pop up here. Like and then. Part of the time from Monday to Thursday, I would be working at Coastal Seafood. So I was a fishmonger during the week. And then on the weekend, we would hustle, pop-ups. And then on top of it, we would get caterings from like First Lutheran Church, where they'd be like, there's a women's prayer gathering. Could you guys make quiche and French toast for us for $200? And we're like, yes. And like that, you would hustle these catering things, or people would be like, hey, we'll promote you on our nonprofit thing if you come and bring over like 300 pieces of food. And sorry, we can't pay you, but you'll get FaceTime with people coming through for this, and we're like, okay, yes. And so that's what was going on, and it was great. And then when we first started, like a year and a half later, almost 2 years later, my dad had a horrible accident at work. He slipped off of a ladder. He builds homes, central Wisconsin area. That's where they live. He falls off a ladder and he fractures his skull. He's in the ICU for about 6 weeks, almost 7 weeks. Right away when it happened, all my siblings, they lived across the country at that time, we all flew in. And like I remember going to visit my dad. It was like a 3-hour drive into Wisconsin. I was visiting my dad. I was in the ICU unit. It just has this weird smell to it. You know what I'm saying? It's hospitals, right? Yeah. It's dark. My dad's my hero. Like, dude fought a war, right?
It's crazy.
Statistically, he was supposed to die during that war, but he fought a war, lived 10 years in this refugee camp, still went back and fought for the interests of America. And when they got left behind by America, by the government who they fought for, he did not say any anti-American quotes. He did not. He was still saying this country is where I want to bring my children to because they can write their own destiny. That's his attitude. My father fights this war. His brothers, a few of them had like strokes, heart attacks, stuff like that. Dad makes it through, and he's laying in the hospital, and they're saying, we're not sure. Because he slips on a stupid freaking ladder. Oh my goodness. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, it's like an everyday.
What were you feeling?
Well, I felt super guilty because here's the deal. My dad at that time was like he was like a year away from retirement. He doesn't need to be in the ladder working, but they have to because they have to hustle. My greatest guilt that I still partly carry is the fact that if I would have done better in school, if I would have gotten a better job, Dad and Mom wouldn't have to work into their 60s. Do you know what I'm saying? My siblings did the same thing. Like they got great jobs. Right? And it's like, if I wasn't an F up and I wasn't screwing around, maybe I would have had a job in one of these tall buildings, bringing in over 6 digits, and then that money can go and tell my mom and dad earlier, just retire early. We got it. We'll take care of all your bills. You don't ever have to worry about us. Because their whole thing was, my dad was still working at that time because he was afraid that if something happens to any one of you guys, how we want to be able to have a little something to make sure that we can support and float you. And I felt so guilty. I felt so bad. Wow. So I went and visited him. The doctor said, we're not sure of his memory. So when you go in, grab his hand and say slowly, do you remember me or do you know who I am? It'll help him jog his memory to see if, I remember I got in there, I held his hand. I said, hey, Dad, you remember me? And so, again, my dad's my hero. He's a warrior, right? But warriors aren't supposed to go out like this, right? There are 2 ways a warrior should die. On the battlefield, fighting hard, or 2, die as an old man surrounded by his descendants, surrounded by his grandkids, as an old warrior who just tells the stories of old. Do you know what I'm saying? Those are the only way warriors are supposed to go out. Not a freaking stupid ladder, dumb accident, sitting in a dark hospital room. So I'm there. I'm around my dad, and I said, Dad, do you remember me? And Dad looks at me. He's groggly. He's got bandages over his head, and he just says, I think you're my son, and he closes his eyes again. And I left. I remember driving. I still remember exactly where I was on the freeway. It was like right past Eau Claire, 94 West, coming back here, and I just broke. And my thing I said to myself was, hey, if Dad dies in that bed, nobody's going to remember him. Nobody's going to know about him. He just becomes this story. Right. Like, oh, dang, lost my dad.
How did this change things?
So it's changed everything. So when I got back here, I'm like, this is no longer about, getting people to know the Hmong culture and the Hmong food. It's about the fortification of mom and dad's legacy. So everything we do stems from that. Everything we do, I bring that as like a little kid with a really messed up macaroni and cheese craft, what I'm saying, art to them, even though it's not worthy of them. Everything we've done is something I've offered to them, saying, this is for you.
Share their story.
Absolutely. And that changed everything. And that, to me, changed everything. The way I cook, the way I do food, the way everything completely changed. So I got really irritated when we were interviewing PR groups to represent us. And one of the PR the group that we interviewed, the guy goes, "Oh yeah, we get it. You're the, you're the guy that's like the mom and dad thing. That's your shtick." And I was just like, man, I don't think you get me. And we didn't go with them because I'm like, this isn't a shtick.
It's my life.
Yeah, bro. Like, if you think this is a shtick, then you better go find somebody else. People talk about branding. You gotta, your brand is all about like the mom and dad cooking thing. That's your brand. It's not a brand, dude. Because to say this is a brand would be disrespectful for the blood and for the tears that they've shed, for the losses that they have, the suffering that they went through.
When you look at what is a brand, it's everything. It's what is culture, it's everything. It's the reality of what happens. It's how you're perceived. And that's not a shtick. That's how you show up. You can't write your brand on the wall and say that's us. You need to slap yourself on that wall. Like if I were to run into this wall and just be mush on the wall, and like what that would be, like you live it every day. And I think it's authentic, it's true, it's transparent, it's real, and it carries weight, it makes impact, and it's meaningful.
And so for me, it's been this whole idea of going back to mom and dad's table, learning the food that they made, digging into it, and while doing that, I learned their story. And by learning who they are, I'm really just learning about who I am. So I was a kid who was embarrassed of being Hmong because nobody knew who Hmong people were. Nobody knew who the story was. I was a kid growing up, too. When people asked me about being Hmong, this is what the white kids would say. Well, why are you in our country? Why are you here? And I always felt like I had to defend the position of being Hmong. Like, why am I worthy enough to be here? Why is our people, like our people had to do something big so that we can have a mission here. And I always felt like that's all the question I have to answer. Now it's completely changed. Now it's like, let me tell you about my mother and my father. And in that moment, it's not about the why are you here. It's about the connecting with people. I tell you the truth, man. Eric, I've talked to many people about who my parents are and the sacrifices they made. I don't care who the person next that I'm talking to, white, black, green, blue, whatever, yellow, whatever that person's skin color is, or where ethnic background, where they come from, they can resonate in that. Because as humans, we know what it means to hurt, what it means to suffer, and we know pain. That stuff does not discriminate. Those emotions are real if you're rich, poor, you're from Africa, you're from Asia, you're from Europe, wherever.
We're more alike than we are different.
Absolutely. The more that's what I would say, that in our differences, we find out that we're actually more alike.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so that's my big thing, man. Like,
so you have this experience, you have this realization that if I don't make my work about representing my past, my parents, and respecting, showing making sure my parents are never forgotten, and I can share their story through my food, through this culture. You have this realization. How did you start living differently? When exactly? You were already doing the pop-ups, right? During this time. So like how did this change things?
Our menu changed.
Okay. When did this happen? 2017.
So like
early
right away. It was 17, 18, around there.
How do you think this started? How did this give you more purpose, direction?
I'm a dude that's all about the why. What's your why? Find your why and frickin' just drive towards it. Don't stop. Be on the offensive. And so that's what drives me. I learned. My dad told me the story of how they escaped Laos. Right. So, word comes through, America's pulling out, 1975, America's pulling out, and so he has his platoon of dudes. A lot of them said, we got to go back to our family because the Northern Communist Party is coming through and they're slaughtering the Hmong people. It's a genocide. So Dad goes back to the village, and I said, Dad, how did you escape? He goes, I had a compass and had military training. So what'd you do? He goes, well, everyone looked at me and said, help us escape. And my dad said, I took my compass, I pointed it south because I knew we needed to go south to get to the border. And I'm like, he goes, yeah, pointed south, and we just walked into the jungle. I'm like, was there a trail? No, there's no trails. And
Did he at least have a machete?
that's what he did. He said he had a machete, you
Good.
just bring, and then he had his gun with him, and then his whole village followed him.
Wow, that's
They were
wild.
like, "We need you to help us." So he goes in, and he tells me, he goes, "I learned that you always have to keep moving, and you have to move forward, and you have to do it together." And learning that from him, that now has become the core values of Hilltribe. Always moving forward together.
I love that,
We're
man.
moving, and the movement is just not circles. We're moving forward, and we're moving together.
I love it.
And that becomes the core value into when we as an executive team have to make a decision. Are we moving forward together with this? Or do we need to take a pause and figure out where we're not jiving well? It's the whole thing that it is what Hilltribe is about. And it was from what my dad did escaping Laos.
Man.
And that is the core value of our company.
And this is exactly what your core value. They should be a representation of you in like your story. What do you look like on paper? I think people think of they create this image of what they want to be. It's not who they are, you know. And sometimes who you want to be is. It's not easy to reach that facade, that image of who you want to be. You're better off really digging deep in who am I?
Yep.
What resonates? Who am I already? What are the best parts of who I am in my story? Put that on paper. That's easier to show up to every day, right? I'm loving this, man. We're going to take a quick break to thank our sponsors. We'll be right back to talk about how this moment in your life and how you started, like, you know, realizing that your why and how you started living more intentionally to get to where you are today.
We have to interrupt today's video to let you know that right now, Restaurant Systems Pro is offering a no strings attached 60-day trial that will help you improve your systems, increase your profit, and find better work-life balance. All you have to do is click the link below.
We're back. So you have this moment, this realization, you get clarity of your why, your purpose to share your culture, to share your parents' story. How did things start happening differently? Like, did things start accelerating? What happened then?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to say this is a beautiful Disney story. And it's like, bring,
Right?
I'm the pretty princess now, you know?
It's not how it usually works.
No, there was a lull of just us hustling.
Yeah.
Dude, I remember one time I was doing this catering as a breakfast catering, and it was like 5 a.m. It was dark. We were at this commissary kitchen that was super shady, and I slipped during the ice. It was like a February, so it was like super icy. I slipped on the ice. I fell, and right when I was falling, I thought to myself, and we were hustling. We're just hustling, right? And I just thought to myself, please hit your head on the pavement so then you don't have to do this catering today. Please. You know, like that's like, but then I was like, I have big shoulders, so I hit my shoulder first, and I'm like, no!
Stupid shoulders
Stupid
getting
shoulder,
away my head.
getting away in my head. Protected my head. And I remember I just lay there going, what am I doing? You know, I got up and, you know, finished the catering, blah, 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 whatever. But I realized that there are these moments, these like incredible moments that you're like, bam, they're like stars collide, you're learning. But those don't happen all the time.
No. But
Then-
when they happen, you know they're
Yes. Then
happening.
there's
It's a gut feeling.
Yep. Then there's the hustle. You're in the hustle and the grind, and it's 6-7 months. Nothing's really changing. You know, you feel like I created a system, but my system flaws, so then I'm running around to 8 different shops just to try to find frickin' cilantro. Like, it's just like, what am I doing? But I think in all of that, I didn't want to give up because they never gave up. Like, it sounds so cheesy, but it was just like, nope, they never gave up. So suck it up, dude. Like, finish the dishes. It's 2 a.m. Let's go.
It's half the battle is showing up, man. It's one of my core values. It's just after. So we have integrity. We are students. We are educators. We are collaborators. We are communicators. We show up and we have fun. But showing up is literally half the battle, and it's those who show up the most over time. It compounds. You know. So I do want to talk a little bit more about pop-ups because it was around 2016 to 2017 I started seeing this pattern in the people I was talking to that they got started with pop-ups. And I want more people to be aware of the pop-up approach. Why is the pop-up approach, do you think it's a better approach?
I think it's a great start.
Yes.
It's not the end all. It's a great start.
Which is, there's the approach of working for famous people and tying your brand to them and learning under their, guidance and using that to go get a $2 million loan.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the start where you can.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing wrong with that path.
No.
A lot of people do it and they have success. But then there's the path of like, I can just start doing this as long as I'm okay not making a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
I can just do what I love right now, but start where I can.
Yeah. So what I would say, sorry, man, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're good.
What I would say from the pop-up standpoint is this: don't quit your day job. Very honest. Don't quit your day job and don't go full into a pop-up.
One a week, maybe one a month.
Yep.
Yeah.
What you get to do is you get to test the waters. A lot of people who go in the pop-up world comes from two schools of thoughts. They work for somebody and they're like, I'm going to go do a pop-up and do my own. Great. That's amazing. But working for someone on a line is totally different than doing your own.
Right.
Because now you have to worry about food costs. Now you got to worry about who you're paying to come, Now you're also got to worry about, okay, what am I selling? What are my price point? The business aspect of it. A lot of line cooks and some chefs who aren't involved in that side of the business, man, it's great. If this restaurant fails, like they can go get a job somewhere else.
Right.
Like if this fails and everything goes under, like I have my name written to a lot of loans and personal guarantees on a lot of stuff.
Right.
But again, it's, like I tell people, don't quit your day job. If you're a cook, if you're a chef who, working for somebody else, pick those days, the day off you have once a month, and you say, hey, you talk to your chef, hey, I'm going to do this here. You know what the best part is? You have all this group of people supporting you. So some of the people that are working with you that have days off too, hey, I'll come help serve. Hey, I'll come help prep with you.
Yeah.
And it is really fun.
So start small.
Absolutely.
Scale over time. What are some of the other things that you learned over time that if you just knew from the beginning, it would have been a game changer?
I think for me is keep your menu small.
Yes. Why is that important?
Do your greatest hits. Do your greatest hits. Any opener for big bands, right? They don't go and do like, oh, here's some new songs I'm going to try. No, you do your greatest hits, and understand that you're an opener. Like you're not the main act. So it's cool. Do your greatest hits. That's what we did. So we kept the menu to like 6 items.
I was just going to say what's small. That's relative. So 6 items.
Maybe 7 items, and be okay with selling out. You want to sell out.
So are these plated? Or are they like where you do like to go only?
Yep.
Like.
So it's a little different now since COVID and everything. Everyone has it's kind of changed the world. But we did when we started ours before COVID. It was the first 2 was more of like smaller plates. I always hate that word, small plates, but it's smaller plates. And the first 2 was that. Third would be some kind of noodle dish. So if you're coming individual and you want a bowl, you got that. And the last 2 was like made for 2 to 3. And so we kept to that.
Which is big in the Hmong culture, right? Shareables?
Absolutely. Yeah. If I had it my way, all 6 would be that.
Yeah.
If I had it my way, it'd be like, you know what? You come here, you have a plate already ready, and you just order, and it comes in the middle.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is, we had people that were like, 1 top, 2 tops that would come in. We would have people that were, like, oh, I'm just here for a little something, And so it's like, okay, we had to feel out the people coming in and, kind of switch that.
So what are some of the, you talked about the importance of why, right? Why is a small menu important?
Yep. So it's important because, again, you want to show your greatest hits. You want to show what you can do. But at the end of the day, you're coming in. It's like you're moving into your friend's couch for the weekend and then you're leaving.
And you're cooking dinner on that couch.
Yeah, bro, you don't want to freaking bring in your, 45-inch screen TV. I guess it'd be cool, but what are you doing? Like, you don't want to bring in a dresser. You're going to, nah, man, you're living out of a go bag.
Yeah.
And that's what it is.
So you can do, how do you say this? You can do less better.
Yes. And you want to run out.
Yeah.
Because it's like, what are you going to do for
you don't want to bring it home with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, and again, there's food costs, and
so was your strategy early on to be profitable or just to kind of like, well, like what was your goal in the first year or 2?
We didn't really have any goals, but in the back of my mind, it was not profitable, and not to be profitable. In the back of my mind was like, we had to educate people on what Hmong food is.
Okay.
So we weren't doing a burger pop-up. We weren't doing a pizza pop-up. We weren't doing a Italian red sauce pop-up. We were doing Hmong pop-up, and a lot of people go, well, what is it? What's Hmong food?
What is Hmong food?
Yeah, so we have two. You have the hardliner Hmong people who are like, Hmong food has to look exactly like this, taste like this, right? And then you had the other side where it's like, well, Hmong food can be whatever you want, you know, like whatever. It doesn't matter. It's like, you know, it's Korean, it's Japanese, whatever.
Well, the Hmong people were nomadic, right?
Absolutely.
So it wasn't like that part of the history that they
Yep.
went around and they brought all that stuff together?
Yep. So we talk about that.
Yeah.
We say Hmong food is not a type of food. It's a philosophy of food. And what is that philosophy? And so we say that in that philosophy of what Hmong food is, that what we always talk about is this idea that when we gather together, we use what's around us. So Hmong food here in Minnesota is different from Hmong food in California a little bit because the growing seasons are different.
Right.
Hmong food here in Minnesota is a little different from the Hmong people that live in, let's say, Little Rock, Arkansas, because the weather is different.
Right.
But what keeps us connected is our story. What keeps us connected is there's these little elements. If you're not if you don't listen to the culture carefully or you're not in the culture, you miss those flavors. So that's why we always say Hmong food. Like even our restaurants, I say we make Hmong food, but if you truly want to experience Hmong food, you have to sit at the table of a Hmong mom and dad, of a Hmong house, because at the restaurants we miss all these little nuances.
What are the nuances that you get with mom and dad?
You would never be asked, can I make a plate for you? We don't believe in making plates for our people when they come in, our guests. You're given a plate and then you're invited to the table. You would never be asked, hey, how many pieces do you want? You serve yourself, and whatever you take, you take. The food in the center is not about everyone getting a quote-unquote fair share. It's about everyone gets to sit together. So as a little kid, I would get mad because there was like, you know, there's 4 of us kids, and there'd be 5 pieces, and I would say, oh, it's not fair. And my dad would stop me. And he said, there's no such thing as not fair. And then this is what my dad would say. Dad would say, when you say this is mine, you have less. But when you say this is ours, we have more. So what does it mean to have more together? So when you come in and mom's making you food, my mom's never ever going to ask you, hey, sweetie, can I make you a plate? It would be like disrespectful, because that means you're limiting what you want to put on a plate for them. But they invite you to the table. You get invited to the table to sit down and partake in everything that's in the center. Because my mom said that when we were in the refugee camp and we were in the war camps, it was so poor we had nothing left. We were able to scrounge up something in the middle, and everybody can have a piece.
I just love that lesson of just the abundance mentality in general. Like when we think of scarcity, when we think all I get is this portion, we guard it.
Yep.
But when we combined our resources, we can go. There's always more together, right? And we can always go further together.
Yep.
I think that mentality is important in business too, not just in what you're eating at the table, but like when we come together and we combine all of our shared strengths and abilities and experiences and perspectives, the collective that coming together of ideas and skills and strengths, the group goes so much further. There's plenty for everybody.
Absolutely.
You know, it's just a great lesson.
Yeah, and that's part of the philosophy that sometimes coming to restaurants, it seeps through the little holes. You know what I'm saying? Like restaurant, at the end of the day, it's a business, so there's logistical things that need to go behind it.
You get lost in the mundane.
Yeah, that's the truth. And I never claim that we are traditional Hmong food. Authentic. That word, authentic and traditional. I've never claimed that. I say we do Hmong food, but we do Hmong food in the way of like how I grew up.
Yeah.
You know,
I don't think food should be labeled either. Sometimes, you know,
absolutely.
What is like food is. It's whatever you bring together. And there's so many different renditions of it. I think it was the French that were big on like saying this is exactly what something's supposed to be, and if it's not exactly like this, it isn't this. I've never really marched to that beat. But
no. I think that being in the restaurant world and cooking too, you really see that. There's no thing that we cook that's like, oh yes, this has this pure thing that we can trace back to this purity of whatever. It's like, dude, no, like the French took that from so and so, and like. You know, the Spanish took that from this, and then the, like pad thai. You know, the pad thai isn't actually really Thai. Pad thai was a middle finger to the Chinese. Because there was a lot of Chinese businessmen and companies that were buying up, spots in Thailand. So the king of Thailand decided that they would take that technique of frying noodles, which that's a Chinese thing, and he would take that technique, make it into pad thai, and then that now is the national dish of Thailand. So literally, it's a middle finger to the Chinese. Pad thai is not like, oh, yeah, a bunch of Thai people figured it out. No, it was they took the technique and they took the way that they make fried noodles like that from the Chinese and did that as an FU to the Chinese. Like, wow.
But look, use pizza as an example, right? Like, there is no right way to make pizza.
Yeah.
In my opinion, some people would freak out at that comment.
Yeah.
But the best pizza in the world is the pizza that you grew up eating.
Yep.
And it's relative. It's like it's whatever memories that rendition of pizza brings to you when you eat it. That makes it so good. Like, there is no right way. There's just the way that you like and other people like. And
Mandalorian style. This is the way.
I love it. So, when did you know to go from pop up to brick and mortar? What was that transition like?
It was really hard because it was like we got a chance to open up at Sociable Cider Works, which is a cider brewery. They bought a trailer, and then we put Union Hmong Kitchen in that trailer.
Okay. So I should probably bridge the gap a little bit. So you went from just doing it like when you can. You didn't quit your daytime job. And then as momentum builds, you started doing more frequent pop-ups. Was there a middle ground like between where you're just doing them randomly to like now you're actually being profitable with the pop-ups and the only thing holding you back from making more money is more regular spot?
When we hit that, the owners of Social Cider Works said, we've done a few little things at their place, and they're like, hey, we have this, we want to have food here constantly. So, but we got this food trailer, and we would love for you to like do a residency in it. So that's when we're like, okay, this could be really good for us on a profit wise. It keeps us consistent. So we did that, and doing that was the launching to be like, okay, like we'll, from here on, then we'll do a brick and mortar. And just keeping this like we're like we got this one route. This is the route. Pop up. You get to a point where you're big enough. Okay, now we have like, I wouldn't say a brick and mortar, but we had a trailer. And then, okay, that's great.
Some level of consistency.
Yep.
Like a trailer is a brick and mortar when your life is popping up all over the place.
So it was like the next thing.
Yeah.
And then we gather a bunch of things together. Okay, what does it look like to look at a brick and mortar? And then that's where the kind of the birth of V9 came. And it was interesting. Union Hmong Kitchen has been always looked at as a, that's cute, kid, but when are you gonna have a real restaurant? Like we've been even told, like, you guys, you do this little like thing, that's cute, but like when are you having a real? It was actually said to us, when are you gonna have a real restaurant?
Ooh, how did that feel?
Hurt, man.
I bet.
Yeah, it's like, I don't have any kids, so I can't say that I understand this, but it's like to be completely honest, and the kind of the hurt that was like in my heart. First, it was like, dang, man, they kind of like spit on mom and dad's legacy through this, because this is how the Hmong people did it.
Right.
We came to America. We didn't have a house, so we slept in couches of sponsors. Then we got to
the Hmong people were the original pop-up.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. If you look at our story, it's it's the story of our Hmong people. And it's like, again, I don't have any kids, so I wouldn't understand completely this, but but it's like if you have a kid and the kid has some kind of disability or born with like Down syndrome, and somebody looks at you and goes, hey, when are you gonna have a real kid? Like, do you know? Like, that's how I felt. Like,
are we not? Great analogy.
Like, no, for me, I'm like, are we not real? We're doing, 275, 300 in sales out of a trailer, and catering. We're like I don't know. I have an LLC. We have a business. Like, but we don't have these four walls that people can come and eat at. I'm sorry. This is all we have right now, and it's still like, this is great, but when are you having a real restaurant? When are you get
this is what they were saying to you when you were doing it at the Cider Works?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
How long were you there?
We were there for like almost 2 years, and the goal is to be there for like a year and a half, 2 years.
What was your evolution during that 2 years?
It started out as a small, whatever, and then we found like we have our greatest hits, and then we kept to that. We had little grills outside, little smokers outside, so we grill the meats.
So this is 2017 to 2019?
18 to 19 and a half, and then COVID hit.
Yeah.
And then we had to figure out really quick how to get through the summer with COVID.
Well, I feel like you kind of were in a better position than a brick and mortar to have a mobile, pop-up that you could do outside.
Yeah. So that was the thing. So what we saw was our weakness, quote unquote, now has become our strength.
So the weakness being a pop-up.
Yeah.
Not being a real restaurant.
Yeah.
Quote unquote. There was quote quotes.
Yeah. So, and then from there on, we had a few places that were like, hey, we have a kitchen, but the food's not going well. It's a bar. You guys can run the kitchen. We'll run the drink. So we, had. So that was like.
How would you set that up? Would they keep all the sales from the alcohol and you
Yep.
keep all the sales from the food?
Absolutely.
I like that approach.
Yep. So we did that, but then unbeknownst to us, they just closed suddenly without really giving us a warning. So we established ourselves in there. It was really, it took us about 4 or 5 weeks to establish ourselves in there, and then literally the week after they closed.
Was this the same the cider place or a different place?
Nope, different place.
Got it.
And
What was better about this spot than the cider place?
People can sit down inside
At the time when you were looking at it.
Yep.
Yeah.
People can sit down. But we were still the wishy-washy with COVID, right? It was, we're closing indoor dining. Okay, we're open now. Well, we're closed.
Well, if we're listening to this and we're at that point where we've been maybe doing a pop-up for a year, we're getting traction, we're selling out every day, and we're looking for a more permanent pop-up. What are some of the things you learned the hard way in making that transaction, or things you know now that you didn't know that you could give advice to yourself?
Have not a slush fund, but have that bumper fund.
What is a slush fund?
Where it's like, hey, we're transitioning out, and it's just gonna things are just gonna cost. What's up?
You're buying yourself time.
Yeah. So
wiggle room.
Yep. So we're just gonna have we just need I don't know. For us, it was like $25K.
Okay.
And to make sure that there's this fund where it's like we're pulling money out of here because it's like,
Bills still gotta get
crap.
paid.
Yep. This has got to get paid, and crap, like we got to get this permit now.
Yeah.
And that permit's $1,300, or whatever.
Still, dude, $25,000 transition. Like you could go get a loan for $500,000 and try to get your.
So I never knew that we could get a loan.
No, I'm just saying, generally speaking, if you're listening to this and you're trying to go straight for brick and mortar, the cool thing about the pop-up approach is like you can come up with $25,000 on your own if you work hard enough and you save, and that can be the step to the next. You can do it step by step. You don't have to go all in at once.
And this is what I would tell people too, looking back on it, is I think, again, this is something that it happened to us without us not knowing. Like this wasn't planned, dude. Like this wasn't like, this is our 5-year growth plan. It was like, how do we survive to next week? How do we survive to next week? I remember when I first started, I would just pay our dudes in Venmo. I'm like, and they just like right down there. I was like, okay, you good on this? And I just send them Venmo, like I don't. Sorry, IRS,
Well, I mean, that's kind of the other cool thing about pop-ups right now, and I'm not encouraging people to do tax evasion and stuff like that. But when you're young
tax
and you're small, and you're literally not fixed, you're harder to lock down. You're harder to follow up on. Like you can. I mean, this is why they regulate things so they can keep tabs on everybody. And when you're a pop-up, the government really hasn't caught up with the pop-up yet.
Yeah.
So I'm not encouraging anybody to break laws. I'm just saying that if you do, there's a better chance you don't get caught.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we were just side hustling, and people would just write us checks too. And be like, okay, thanks for doing my kids graduation party. Here's $500. And you're like, okay, cool. And they just put it in the check to make sure that there was never negative.
So when did it go from being loosey goosey to more serious?
When we took over in the trailer, I found an accountant. I found a tax person. And
so you had this trailer. This is the trailer that you were using at this place that closed.
Yep. No, this trailer we were using at Social Cider Works.
Oh, okay.
So then we moved into this bar.
Got it.
It was like a bar pub type thing.
Did the trailer come with you?
No, Sociable owns that trailer. We were the resident.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
So that trailer is, right now it's like different people coming through.
Got it. So it's a pop-up.
Yeah, it's a pop-up trailer. Yeah.
So when did you know you were ready to move? What year is it when you moved out of that pop-up trailer?
2019. Yeah, like end of October of 19.
Okay,
and
going into 2020.
Yeah, we're going to 2020. That was like COVID was just like a glimmer of like people talking about it. We go in, COVID hits hard. No, COVID. No, it was 2020. It was 2020. Yeah. Okay. COVID already hit. And now it's like, okay, we've seen the light at the end of the tunnel. So, we went in. And, that closed down right away. And then and then it was Thanksgiving also. So we were doing Thanksgiving kit. And we had like $25K in order from Thanksgiving kit. So we didn't have a place to do our Thanksgiving kit put together. So we squatted there.
Was it going to be a Hmong Thanksgiving kit?
Kind of, yeah. We did Thanksgiving, but we put a bunch of Hmong side dishes in there. And we literally squatted there without anybody knowing and just did all our package there. After we were done with that, there was a there was like this catering kitchen that we found that we just like did to go catering from there, and people were really cool, man. Like people were all about the getting in, supporting. So we did that. After we were there for like almost a year, Gray's Food Hall, which they had an open place, and the gentleman who runs Gray's, or who built Gray's, when Gray's was first gonna come here, we were one of the first people they talked about 3 or 4 years ago, and we were just like, I don't know if we can, if we're ready for that transition.
I'm definitely hitting up this food hall while I'm in town.
Man. Yeah. So we were like, I'm not sure if we can, we can do that right now, but at this time we're like, yeah, let's do it. So we implemented ourselves into that food hall.
Still the greatest hits.
Still the greatest hits. So we created this thing called Zhongxia meal. The word Zhongxia in Hmong means happy. So happy meal. And it's basically a meats in three. Okay. If you think about it, you pick a protein, you get a hot sauce, you get a veggie side, and you get sticky rice. It's a meat in threes basically. And so we created that, and we said we're gonna do this because these are our greatest hits. Keeping that menu small. And then you can get what's called the Gray's Feast, where basically we take a rice basket and we line up with banana leaves, and then you just get a bunch of different kinds of cuts of meats, food, noodles on there.
Man,
yeah. So it's made for 3 to 4 people, but it's been taken out by 2 people.
So how did things start to change when you got into the Gray's Food Hall?
So we were very blessed, and once we got into the Gray's Food Hall, there was more push on the media side. So there was national people were interviewing us. When we were out in like the last summer that we were out in Social Side Works in the trailer, Bon Appetit did a whole piece on us, and they were like, we are so sorry because the piece came out in the midst of COVID.
Oh yeah.
So it was just like, but they did a whole piece on us, and it was like, I thought it was going to be like, oh, hey, here's a little side note. If you're ever in Minnesota, so they did a couple other little small ones like that. So I thought, and then the feature editor, she like emailed me and goes, hey, can I get the phone with you? And I'm like, and she started talking. She goes, oh yeah, it's going to be like right in the center, and you're going to get the cover shot. I'm like, wait, what?
That's
so
wild.
Yeah, so here we are, quote unquote, not a real restaurant, and we have this whole piece.
That's amazing.
On Bon Appetit.
But you contribute a lot of it because you chose to lean into who you are. At a point in your career, you wanted to leave the Hmong out of it. Yeah. And I think this just goes to show to be who you are and to own who you are.
Absolutely.
And to shut that fear up.
Yeah. So when that happened, what happened next was, all that stuff was great. We got a lot of press, went really well. And then when we went to Gray's Food Hall to be in this food hall, more like national press started coming through, started asking for more, requests and stuff like that. And so that's when I was like, okay, I need help sorting all this thing. We had an incredible team that runs the operation stuff, but then the PR stuff, I needed help. So we're able to, as we grew there, we were able to, bring on different PR groups that would help us sort things out.
Yeah, I want to talk about the PR stuff because I think that's really important because I think you do it really well. And it's an element. It's so significant that I think today, if you have plans to be successful, a publicist is part of the equation. Yeah, absolutely, you need that today. Before we talk about that, though, I am curious. I love the idea of a food hall as being another stepping stone to a brick and mortar. Because I love the way you took, just like start where you can as the cash flow increases, as your access to people increases, as things are going, you just take bigger bites, right?
Yeah. So if you think about how we started as pop-up, it's like we're couch surfing. And then suddenly when we think of the trailer, it's more like, hey man, we have like a guest room over here for you. Yeah. So we went there. And then if you look at the food hall, it was like now we moved into an apartment complex.
Yeah, now you have a suite.
Yeah.
Not a suite or like you got a studio suite.
Studio, yeah. But it's still ours.
Yep.
And that's why I tell them, I'm like, let's be very, very clear. This is ours. 290 square feet in here. Yeah. It's ours.
Yeah.
We get to control whatever's
You're
in
paying,
here.
right?
Yeah, we're paying rent and everything.
But the cool thing about it is you're not worrying about all the things that you have to worry about with a standalone brick and mortar, like maintenance. What are the other things that you're not worried about?
Yeah, little maintenance.
Electricity, water.
Yep.
You're not paying those bills, are you?
We are.
Okay.
We are. But again, it's part of the rent. You know what I'm saying? Like
yeah. It's less to manage.
Yep.
So it's a great stepping stone if you're a restaurateur and you don't have the bandwidth to be the back office yet.
And you can run it with 3 to 4 people.
Right.
And again, keep your menu small.
So what is the deal that you have worked out with Gray's? You're paying rent for the space.
Yep.
What are the parts of a restaurant that you don't have to worry about?
Yep. So you don't, like, a lot of times it's maintenance. Like crap breaks down. Like if the hood goes off, something goes wrong, there's a GM there that takes care of all that.
Yeah.
And
the food hall's paying that person.
Yep. And that's, again, it's all wrapped up in your rent.
Yeah.
And also too is they have a lot of the kitchen equipment that are already in there for you. Unless you want something specific, then you would do it yourself. But your basic is already in there.
Mm-hmm. So it's an incredible stepping stone.
It is.
And there are more and more food halls popping up all over the place. This is an option. This is a pathway.
And we were in control of our own promotion, PR. So you were in control of your own. So that meant like however much effort you put into it, that's you putting the effort into it. So if you're just like, whatever, I'll put a post once a month about our place in here, then it's on you. So it made me really going, okay, I switched from being a cook to more like, okay, you have to be like the front end of this, you have to be the front push of this. And so to be completely honest, what really, really, really helped us that summer was earlier, the spring before that, we were asked to go on Netflix Iron Chef, so to compete on Iron Chef. And it was a call at that. Gavin Kasen was he's the culinary producer. So he texted me and goes, "Hey dude, these producers are going to call you tomorrow. Pick up the phone." And I'm like, okay.
So you actually worked with Gavin for a little bit.
Yeah,
that didn't come out of your story.
Oh shoot, sorry. That was kind of like the mix into all the little restaurants. Spoon and Stable. Yep.
How long were you there?
6 months, 7 months. That was like when I was going through there. I had this huge health issue, and I was like, dude, like, it's not going to be good.
What was do you mind talking about it?
Yeah. I have flat feet, I guess, if you want to call it that. And so my ankles, the tendon on my ankles weren't, they were gone. Oh. So it would just be like, it's like your foot and your ankle, like, that knob is just bone on bone. Ooh. So it was kind of like, hey, you have to figure this out. Like, so walking around, standing up for 10, 12 hours.
It's hard to be healthy.
Yeah.
When we have no desire to move because you're so sore.
Yep. And then on the other end too was just, I had stuff with like high blood pressure and, like heart palpitations and stuff like that. So there's a part of me that's like, again, I was in a really bad place at that time where I'm like, whatever, and then there was this moment where it's like, you can't do this. You can't go on like this. So yeah. So and I mean that's kitchen life, right?
Right.
And so I didn't have health insurance. I didn't have anything.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, I have to figure this out.
Right. Did you? I mean, we're kind of going back.
Oh yeah.
Was this I know I interviewed Gavin for the podcast, so I know that they don't fuck around. Like that's a legitimate operation. Did you grow as a professional at this point, or were you too consumed with your health conditions?
Did I grow working there?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay.
I learned a lot about discipline, about like how do you ferociously attack something.
He said discipline was his greatest strength.
Yeah. I
give me an example of how he helped you with discipline.
Your station, clear station, clear mind. You say that to us. Brunch, making the stupid hash brown at brunch. It's a process to make that hash brown. A process. It's like $10 for the hash brown. And the process is a long process. Trust me. The technique is like incredible. Like I like pride myself in making the hash brown now. I was just like, dude, this is so cool. But when you have to make like 35 of them, and you're like, ugh.
Yeah, and how many steps does each one have?
A lot.
And if you cut a corner on one step, will it be the same hash brown?
And I remember Gavin saying to me, he said, this is brunch. People can make brunch at their house, but they choose to come here. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
So when they come here, we want to make sure that when they're coming to brunch, like that, like this is going to stand out in their mind. They're going to say, dude, we got to do brunch here again.
Yeah.
Because brunch is basically eggs, potatoes, bacon, ham, whatever. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, basic.
Yeah, people can do that at home.
Yeah. But they choose to come there and drop good money on brunch.
So how do you elevate that?
Yeah. We're even more of like making it so good that like it just stays in the front of their minds. Like, oh, brunch, dude, Spoon and Stable, Sunday morning brunch. And the other thing he said is, he always says, "Chef, cook it the way you want them. Cook it the way cook it the way you want to eat it." And so I'm just like, oh my gosh, yeah. And so those things stuck with me, and it's still there. I mean, a few years ago we shot a little TV show together, and I think I quoted him in front of him because he was in there. I'm like, yeah, he used to tell me, cook it the way you. He goes, yeah, and I'm like, yeah. I'm like, isn't it crazy? Quote the chef in front of the chef.
Yeah, I'm sure that was great for you.
Yeah. No, but yeah. Sorry, I kind of just plastered over that.
No, man, you're totally
But
fine.
yeah. So I learned a lot about that, and discipline was the thing.
Yeah. So as you're marching, so now let's talk about the publicist thing, because you said that you have to manage your own, and you went to school for marketing and PR. You said too, on top of the communications.
Yep.
So, what advice do you have for finding the right publicist, and what kind of budget do you go all in at once? Do you start with a little, and if you do start with a little, what does that look like? Yeah.
So with the success of all the stuff that happened in Iron Chef, and and it's so funny because I had to remind people, guys, we were a contestant and we didn't win. Spoiler alert for those who haven't watched it. We didn't win, but the producers from there got talked to me. His name's Chris, and he's like, dude, you guys.
Farrell? Is that where this Farrell thing came
from? That's a different show.
Oh, okay, never mind.
So the producer there said, hey, man, for Iron Chef, he's like, hey, man, I've done over 100 episodes of these. I think yours is our favorite one. Wow. And he's like we have unanimously voted, and goes, this is our favorite episode. And so I was like, okay, cool, man. And just the outpour of everything, especially in the Hmong community. Our community is like when the community gets behind you, they're behind you. Like Suni Lee wins the Olympics, gold medal. Like it's just like, oh yeah, that's our girl. Yeah. Whoever it is, or in the Hmong community, if you do something where it's like it gets international recognition, it's like that's our person. Yeah. That's our person. It's good and bad things to that, and then so it kind of just blew up there. And then we started getting more like, hey, I have an idea for a show, or like, hey, can you come and be a contestant for this? And it was just so many things. And at that point too, I hired on an agent, so in a management team where she helped me suss through all of that. She knows all the stuff when it comes to, she's from LA. That's her world. She's a shark in a really good way. She's my shark, Yeah. And so she's incredible. Front Foot First, is the name of their production group, their management group. They're incredible. And they just don't take on anybody. It's just like they're really thoughtful about what they do. So, and so I started thinking, man, there's so many things going on. I'm saying, I'm like a typical Hmong kid who says yes to everything. And then sometimes it's like, oh, you say yes to something, and it's like, oh man, like, literally, that was like an hour of like my time where I'm just like, ugh, So.
Well, thank you for saying yes to this 2-hour-long interview.
No, this is fun. So what I did was we started interviewing PR groups, and that's when I was very at first I was like, well, I felt like I was selling myself to them, and Lauren, my agent's like, no. They make them sell themselves to you.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? Like, I can do that? It's like, yeah.
Wait, so who, the agent told you to do this? Mm-hmm. Was this your PR agent for?
No, she's TV media.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Not your PR agent.
No. The PR is the agency.
Oh,
yep.
Gotcha.
So Lauren said, make them sell themselves to you. And so, I talked to a few people. There, some very independent people that were incredible.
I also love that you took you took multiple people. Like, you didn't just find somebody and go, okay, you do this job. Like, you found the right agency.
Yeah, we've also worked with different agencies for certain campaigns and stuff like that, And so I just want to say, hey, this sounds really weird, but I'm just going to say it. I didn't want an agency to rep us sounding like white people talking about Hmong people. I want an agency to rep us by allowing us to speak our voice. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, because PR companies come in and they try to tell you who you are. Mm-hmm. And like, you want to spin it like this because this is going to get traction in the greater. So they manipulate, almost like a video editor manipulates a reality TV show. Yep. They're trying to put you in an angle and position you to appear.
So they get all the rough cuts, and then they're trying to make it into a 30-minute show, which I get why they do that. We have so many facets of what we're doing, and then our PR group tries to do an elevator pitch with it. I get it. Yeah. It makes complete sense.
Right.
But I want us, like, when I met with these different groups, and I just said, hey, here's the deal. Like, and that's what I basically said. Like, my parents' story is not a brand. You know, this isn't our shtick.
Right.
If you want that, find someone else. Like, if you're gonna get me, like, if you want us, like, you're getting me, and then like this is my heart.
Yeah, if you want this business.
Yep. So one of the big things that I always have is that I almost get a little shy letting people meet my parents, to be honest, because it's so sacred to me. Who they are is so sacred and so special to me.
You want to represent them.
Yes, but I don't want people to meet them and go, oh, really? That's it? And so I'm almost like very nervous about it. Do you know what I'm saying?
I don't think you realize how much your story resonates with me, man. It makes a lot of sense. Everything that you said about your parents and how everything you do is to pay homage to your parents. This podcast started because of my parents. I started this podcast because I saw how hard they worked and how much they sacrificed and how they couldn't just have the securities of paying their own rent or their mortgage. You know what I'm saying? Because and they have lines at the door every weekend working in the restaurant industry. And there's thousands of people like this across the country, you know, that work so hard so their next generation can have a better life, right? That's why they do it. They're going to be episode 1000. I'm going to share their story. And it's everything that you're saying is the reasons why. It's because, you know, like I want to pay homage to them and to all the other mom and dads out there who work so hard to sacrifice so much so their kids can get the better, you know, life. Go ahead.
No, man, like, I remember when my dad told me, I don't want you to cook. I don't want you to work in a restaurant because I don't want you to come home and your back is tired, your knees ache, and your hands ache. I don't want you to, he said, I don't want you to be like me. I want you to be better. And, like, as an adult who's, like, 38 now, like, I was like, dude, like, all I want to be is you, you know? Like, gosh, like, man, the closest I feel to my dad is, like, when I'm done working or grilling and my hands all sooted up and I smell like sweat and smoke. That's my dad, you know? Like, he hustled. Like, I hear that in him all the time where he's like, I don't want you to be like me. You know, my dad always says, "Kututua," means I'm really dumb. I don't know the ways of this world. You got to be better than that. And I'm like, dude, like, you're my hero. Like if I can be half the man you are, the kind of father that you are, like, I'm not married, I don't have any kids, but the kind of husband that you are, like, you know, like, he's got no quit inside of him. Like, he's still today, he'll outwork any of us. And I'm just like, I want to be that. And I feel so guilty at times, like, sitting back and relaxing after the day. Like, I feel guilty. Like, I'm not honoring him by not hustling out here. You know, but it's so funny because he's so adamant about, I don't want my children to be like me. And I look at all my siblings and I'm like, we are like everything that's good about us.
The best parts of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same thing with my mom. You know, my mom's like barely 5 feet tall, tiny woman. She took care of our family, man. Like, everything, no matter what happened. Like, she took care of us, and they both are saying, you know, we're really dumb. We don't know anything. We're simple people. We want you to be better.
But I think there's something we can learn from that. I think there's something in being simple, and because it's in the simplicity of knowing what matters. When I say simple, I mean knowing what matters. The values they gave you. You know, the things that you said of just taking care of your people, and it's about the people, and it's about the hard work. It's the culture of and hospitality of people. Just, you don't give, you let people take. We share. It's about the collective. Just start. You know, just what was the quote about in the woods? Just keep on going, keep moving. Yeah, like,
always moving forward together.
Man. And those are the things that matters. And sometimes when we look to the people who have it, right, who have the stuff, who
quote
have,
unquote.
Yeah, exactly. You get to know them and what's really going on. And those people are the most shallow, egotistical, soulless. You know, they're chasing the wrong things. And I think it's good that we like people like your parents humble us and they remind us that what matters, everything that matters, is right in front of us. And
it's for me, you know, what the two questions I get asked a lot is, how do you, like, you're so busy, how do you keep everything going? And I said, I have an incredible team. We have a freaking amazing team that gets to take care of the home front when I'm traveling or whatever. We talk, we communicate. We're like, hey, this is what's going on. So we have an incredible team too. You know, I'm from a small town in Wisconsin, right? And it's always so awesome to see my old teachers that will find an article and send it to me and goes, oh my gosh, like, you know, like, it was like, I turned on TV today and there you were. You know, it's like, wow, you know, and I love honoring them, saying like, you were part of that.
Yeah,
You're part of, but and the question I always get asked is like, how do you stay so quote unquote humble and all these things? And I said, because I know who I am.
Yeah.
I look to mom and dad. I know who I am. They're my lighthouse. They're my shoreline. When I'm in the midst of confusion and storm, I can look and there's this beacon of light. I know who I am. So they loved me ever since I was a kid. My father says, I love you because you're my son, nothing else. There's nothing you can do to work your way out of my love, and there's nothing you can do to work your way into my love. I love you. You're my son, period. Mm-hmm. He taught me that at a young age. No matter what you do, he said, no matter how much you fail, your mom and I, we will catch you. We are your home. That's what they said. So I know who I am. So if some award place doesn't give me an award, I'm not like, ugh, I don't know what to do. If they don't give me an award, I can still stand in front of mom and dad, and they love me the same.
Still Yia Vang.
Yeah. Even if I get an award, even if like, yep, our show got, renewed for season 3 and you're traveling around the world doing all this stuff and people stop and recognize you. I come home and my mom said this. She said this exactly to me today in the car. She said, your dad and I, you're our son. That's it. We know you as our son. That's it. Yeah. And once you know that and your foot is planted in that identity, I don't give a turd if somebody says, oh, this food is da-da-da-da, or, oh, yeah, like, blah, blah, blah. Whatever, dude. Yeah. Like, I know you need a hug from your mom and dad too, so stop pooping on people,
So it sounds like, I mean, the things that I wanted just to resurface, mm-hmm. your clarity in who you are, mm-hmm. and your mission and your values, and once mm-hmm. you honed that shit in, mm-hmm. it sounds like things really started to get to the next level for you.
Yes.
And you were able to articulate it and communicate, yep. This is what we're doing. Then you found the team, the external mm-hmm. team, the contracted team, mm-hmm. Finding the right people to represent mm-hmm. you and your story, because it's so important. Mm-hmm. And then it seems like in like 2021, 2022, things really just like really started to accelerate.
Yeah.
For you. Correct me if I'm wrong about
that. Yeah, very blessed. Different TV shows, different things that came through.
What was the tipping point? When was it? Finding the right publicist?
No,
I need a publicist. Is she looking for anybody?
Yeah. Well, my thing was I didn't do the publicist and the agent thing until like I was like, I don't know what to do with all this stuff coming in. Yeah. To be completely honest, I mean, again, it's like how we build our business, right? Start small. Like I got to the point where it's like I had to like it's so dumb. I set up an info at hilltribemn.com, and it would be like people will send in the info thinking they're talking to like our communications director or something like that, but it was me. But I would just be like, sincerely, UHK team, or whatever.
Well, it's a good way to segment emails, right?
Yeah.
To get it over here.
Yeah. And it was to the point where I'm like double booking things. I'm making wrong. I feel like I'm making wrong decisions on different projects. And that's when, Lauren, my agent, came in and she really helped suss things out. And going through her, because I'm a small town Wisconsin kid, so I'll say yes to anything. And she really build that wall to say, hey, if it's so funny when she says it this way, because I'm like, it's weird. But she goes, she'll tag me on these emails and she'll be like, well, Chef Vang, my client, is da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, I can't believe you give me that title, And so then the seriousness of, hey, you're getting compensated to what you're worth became a real big thing, which was like, oh, wow, like I could get X amount for doing this. And with that money, it was not like building Yia's kingdom, but it was like, for example, my dad's like, man, our tiller for the garden is, dead. And it's like $4,500 for a tiller. And I love to be able to say, I got it, Dad.
Yeah, it shows up at the front steps.
Absolutely. Yeah. My greatest joy is that, is to have this fund, my slush fund. We're like, even this weekend, I was talking to my dad, and he goes, we want to rent this plot of land to do our garden, but it's probably going to be $800 for the summer. And I'm like, yeah, I got it.
Yeah. That is hospitality. That is hospitality beyond just the food, but just like you said, like you anticipate, you don't wait for people to ask for a plate.
Yep.
You see the need, you do it, and being able to do that for the people who've done that for you your entire life.
So my goal,
that's my goal. Man.
Yeah, man. My goal is that like every desire mom and dad has, it's not going to be of like, oh, well, we have to think about the kids and make sure that the money. Nah, man. Like the brothers and the sisters, we get together. My mom wanted this mochi mixer thing, and it's like $350. It's like a Japanese one, like top of the line. It's like the Mercedes-Benz of mochi maker. And for Mother's Day, I was like, dude, I asked my brother, I'm like, dude, what does mom want, or what, what's been going? He's like, oh, she's been wanting this. I'm like, go, let's get it. There's no like, let me go see if we have to move things around. Right. Like, so I want to make it very clear that I'm able to do what I do, and I feel very blessed in what I do and get compensated well what I do, not because I'm out here driving Tesla, not at all. It's because I get to do this for them. It is a small repayment of the life that they live, totally dedicated to us.
I love it, man.
You know?
Paint the picture of what your businesses are.
Yeah, so right now, this is what I get really excited about, is we have all these different things, right? So Hilltribe is our umbrella. It's our mother company.
LLC?
Hilltribe LLC, where we have our vision, mission, values, and goals comes to Hilltribe, and it trickles down. So we have Union Hmong Kitchen, which is at Gray's Food Hall. We also have Union Hmong Kitchen at the Minnesota State Fair. So if you're from Minnesota, you know the Minnesota State Fair is a pretty big thing.
When is it?
It's like the last weekend of August.
Oh,
yeah. So it is, literally in that 12 days, they have over 1 million people come through. So we were the first Hmong food vendor in there since the State Fair opened 112 years ago.
First Hmong restaurants too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the Minnesota.
Okay.
No, there's other Hmong restaurants, but
Okay.
there's other great Hmong restaurants around, and then so we have that Union Hmong Kitchen there. So we have a little stall or a little cart at the Twin Stadium, Union Hmong Kitchen. We're finalizing. I think by the time this comes out, it'll be out. But we're finalizing our stall at U.S. Bank Stadium with the Vikings. So we'll have food in there during the Vikings game.
So Union Hmong Kitchen has presence in 4 locations right now.
Yes, and then we also have retail, which we're finishing up our R&D with our co-packers on retail.
The noodles?
Hot sauces.
Hot
We do hot sauces, do different kinds of seasonings and stuff like that. So we have all that, kind of on that shelf. And then we have V9, which is our brick and mortar that we're building out in Northeast Minneapolis. So that's, in the process, finishing up a few, lawyers and real estate people need to cross some T's, dot some I's kind of deal.
Yeah, you guys were hoping for 2022 on that, right?
We were, yeah. But it was probably going to be more 2023.
I want to unpackage that, but keep on going.
Yeah. So that, and then we have here our Hilltribe building where we do all our catering and special events from. And then since we have a dining area right here, we do a rotating pop-ups with every financial quarter. So Q1, Q2, Q3. Q1 was Slurp, which was all, it's a noodle bar, So we had all these different kinds of noodles. And then Q2 here, we have Mika, which is the Hmong word for American. And so it's our collision of 2 beautiful Hmong culture, American culture. It creates this beautiful third culture. We call it Mika.
That's what Hmong people call America?
Yep, Americans.
Americans, I love it.
So we're like, da-da-da, to Mika, like the American, and that's why we call it Hmong American comfort food. So if you see behind me, we have things like meatloaf. We have things like spaghetti and meatball. We have a katsu sandwich. We have a burger, because it's us embracing our fullness of being Hmong and being American.
I love it.
Yeah, and so then we got Q3 fired up, ready to roll after we're done with this. And then, on one end, kind of still under that, umbrella is I do Hmonglish is a little podcast where, again, Hmonglish is this collision of 2 different cultures, the Hmong culture and the American and the Western culture here, and we talk. Hmonglish is made for Hmong kids that are millennial and Gen Zs, and I firmly believe that we want to create this podcast so that it's for us, and we allow and other cultures will listen in. And so when we talk in Hmonglish with the guests that we bring in, sometimes we'll go on a 5-minute rant in Hmong, and we're not gonna sit there and translate, because we made it for Hmong kids. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Or sometimes
How long have you been doing that now?
I think we're like a year in.
Are you monetized with that?
No, we gotta figure out how to do that.
Well,
I'm trying to.
Let's talk afterwards.
Dude, we need to. I'm trying. We've had a few people that sponsor and stuff like that, but I would, to keep it going, we need to monetize it a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. I think you guys are onto something, because you're. What's great about what you're doing is you have a very targeted audience.
Yep.
So the challenge is going to be, how do we find an organization that wants these people?
Yep.
So you don't need to have tens of thousands of downloads. Mm-hmm. You can have a couple thousand downloads an episode, and have a very targeted audience that, I don't know, maybe it's some type of, I don't even know. I don't know your culture enough to think about what that could be. No. But so you guys just talk about what it is to be Hmong in America? Yeah,
and then whoever the guest is, I dive deep into their lives, of some of the struggles they've had. Being Hmong in America right now is, I think, the biggest thing is the sussing. Is trying to figure out, how do I straddle both worlds and honor one world and still live true to myself in another world?
Well, I think that's part of, and I'm saying this as a white guy, like a white American dude. I think part of our issue moving forward is that we isolate cultures. Like when there's the American culture or American people are 50% white, or I think it's like 55% white. So there's just more of that culture present, right? So that's like this is how I interpret it, at least, right? And then the remaining 45% is everything else, and I think it's Spanish, African American, Asian in that order. Of maybe, and then like I might be wrong, but it's approximately like that. So like you have the micro cultures underneath, and then how do you don't want to give up your culture, your identity, your pride, the thing that you're prideful of. You want to hold on to that because you should be proud of that. That's your culture, that's your identity. But it's hard to what's the word, juggle that. And if you want any American opportunity, you need to have American culture, because people, if they're going to hire you, they want to feel like they're sharing a culture.
Completely understand.
We're taught to hire people who share your culture.
Yep. So completely understand. My dad said to us when we were growing up, that's why he said, you don't have to speak Hmong in this household. My dad always thought forward. He said, he said to us, I remember he said, as a kid, he said, you're going to go into their world. You're going to learn their language. You're going to learn their culture. And, you're going to learn their ways. And he said, you're going to do that, and I'm not going to be able to follow you. And then he said, but embrace it. Learn their cultures, learn their ways, learn their world, and then bring it back to ours. And, as in bring it back and help our people. And I mean, that's like the same thing, dude. Like when we started doing this, it's like I cooked in a bunch of like quote unquote white restaurants. And most people are like, most Hmong people are like, well, why'd you do that? I'm like, because I wanted to learn these different techniques. I want to learn how contextualize. It's about contextualizing, because sometimes Hmong people, we wait here so long to be dubbed by the majority culture, to be dubbed by the white people. Like, you're worthy. I'm like, why the frick are we waiting here so long when we were already worthy?
Right.
Do you see what our parents did? Do you see what our freaking fathers and grandfathers did? Do you see that they were warriors and they fought for a country that would deny them? Then they would have to fight to get into this country. Then they had to fight to stay in this country. Like, those are freaking warriors, man. Like, so why are we sitting here going, are we worthy enough? Like, do we get dubbed by this white dude who runs this company and then he gives us approval? No. The approval was already here. We've already worthy enough. So that's why I love collaborating with different, people from different walks of life.
And I think that's what I think needs to happen, and I'd love to hear your opinions on this, is like, sometimes I think that if you're not a white person in America, you think that unless I'm a white person and I have these values, or not the values, but this culture, then I'm never going to be accepted, and it's systematically broken, right? The question is, how do we share a collective culture? How do we go from like being, all these micro cultures that we're like staggering between, and just say, hey, we have all these things in common, all the things you just shared with us, all the things that every different culture had to do to get here, to have a chance at freedom, of free will, of autonomy. And we start just selecting these things that we collectively share, and that becomes the new culture, the shared culture. What's going through your mind as I say?
Yeah, like as you're saying this, the only thing main thing I'm thinking about is like, this is a pendulum swing, right?
Yeah.
One swings to the side of we're all really different. Let's celebrate our differences. It's just difference. And then everyone feels like, okay, we're talking about all our differences, and like, I don't know how to connect anymore.
Right.
But then it swings to the other side where it just is like the one race, one breed, one color, what I'm saying? Like, there's that pendulum, right?
Right.
And in that pendulum swinging, regardless of what's happening in the culture, in our time, it just swings. And I'm saying that the kind of what we say in the beginning here was like, in our differences, there are commonalities. And we could talk about both.
Right.
And I think that sometimes some of the cultures need to quiet and just listen. And I say this as a Hmong guy who have sat with, Hmong elders who have told me, son, the white people are the people you're going to be working for, never working with. You just remember that. What?
Yeah.
What? How the frick am I supposed to survive in this if that's what my attitude is?
But if you believe that, perception's reality.
Yeah, you believe that, then we have a lot of Hmong kids that believe that.
Yeah.
And then they pray themselves as the victim. Well, I'm not going to get anywhere here because, it's just white people here that are always going to be my bosses. Dude, your dad, your grandpa didn't fight this freaking war so that you can just whimper away.
Right.
These are warriors, man.
But like the one thing that we all have in common is that we all benefit from diversity.
Absolutely.
And I think that's one thing that
Yep.
if you look in Mother Nature,
Mhm.
you see this all the time. Whenever there's diversity,
Mm-hmm.
life thrives.
Absolutely.
And I think it's recognizing these things
Mhm.
and saying, listen, like what is unique about the situation, the world we
Mhm.
live in now is like we get to take all these things that
Yeah.
we're privy to, our diversity and our perspectives, and we get to bring that together under one roof and say, how are we collectively
Mhm.
better?
So I'm gonna say something that I don't know. Whatever. I'm just gonna say.
Do it.
So
Uncensored. Go for it.
no. So, as a BIPOC kid growing up, I know the pains and I know the hurts of what it's like to be, spat at with racism. What it's like to be kicked to the other side for being less than. So I know that. And so I'm not talking from a position of like, oh yeah, like theoretically, like blah blah blah. No. We were, and it sucks
Yeah.
a lot. You're talking to the kid who, growing up, white kids would come and take my eyes and open it up, and goes, "Can you see better now?"
Oh my goodness.
And this was like normal recess stuff, and I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah. And I was a kid, so I was like the only Hmong kid, so I was like, yeah, ha ha ha.
But those kids also don't know what giant jackasses they're being.
Absolutely,
you know?
absolutely,
Yeah.
no doubt. So again, kids are cruel because whatever.
But it's different. It's strange.
But that's because that shit lives in you for a while.
Yeah.
So so I'm coming from that end. So when some of my BIPOC brothers and sisters starts these BIPOC community groups or BIPOC groups, what rubs me the wrong way within these groups is when we talk about white advocates as if they're the problem too. So for example, I have a buddy who's
Anti-racism?
or I don't know what the label is, but
Is that
it's
the
like,
term? I think it means
I
when
don't-
you overcompensate, where you go, I don't know. I've heard somebody
I don't
mention
know
that.
the terms. But what I know is I have a buddy who's white. He is an incredible dude. He works really hard through his restaurant, through what he does to really, embrace the diversity of where he comes from. But when he tries to get into some of these, BIPOC initiatives, especially in the chef world, he gets a cold shoulder. And, we talked about it one day. And one of the toughest things for me is that like some of these BIPOC groups, some of these, BIPOC brothers and sisters that I have.
Is this guy white?
Yeah, the dude's
Okay.
white. Yeah, my buddy's white. But it's hard for him to get in these
He's
groups.
an outsider.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now it's like we've taken our hurt as a BIPOC community and we want somebody to take that hurt. Because sin begets sin that begets sin. Hurt people, I
Yes.
believe. So we're going to hurt some dude here who is an advocate, who wants to be an advocate, who wants to say, how can I help? Because it's like, yeah, we were hurt once and they look like you. Now we're going to hurt you. On top of that, we have become the villain that we were trying to fight.
Right.
So there's this line in Batman Dark Knight, which I really love. Harvey Dent says it, and he says, you either die the hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
Right, dude.
And I'm like, are we becoming the villain that we tried to fight a long time ago? And so that's why for me, in the things that we do with Hilltribe isn't an exclusive Hmong thing only. You look at all our people, not that many Hmong people. You know what Hilltribe is? The Hilltribe was a tribe of people that lived in the mountains of Laos and the mountains of Vietnam and the mountains of Thailand. And the people that lived out there made up all groups of people. But the lowland people felt like they didn't want to interact with them because they're the dirty hill people. They're the mountain people. Laos, I was there like a month or so ago, and I saw the quote-unquote dirty people. Those are my people. And nobody thought that they would amount to anything. But when the CIA came in and needed warriors to fight for them during the conflict in northern Laos, who did they call? The mountain people. Our people, the Hmong people. And it's my thing I say to our team is, look at this. We're kitchen people. Most people will look at us and say, you're not going to amount to much, dude. Like, you never graduated a degree, blah, 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 whatever, right? But if we come together, we can prove them wrong. We come together. If we show them what a group of broken people can do, then we, as a group of broken people...
When you say we come together, who specifically?
The people within Hilltribe.
Got it.
Yep. Or whoever in the restaurant industry.
Got it.
If we come together as a group of broken people, we can show the quote-unquote unbroken people what we can do. And by doing that, maybe here among the broken, we create a home for the broken to come back in.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's Hilltribe.
Mm.
It resonates in all our restaurants. It resonates in everything we do. I love it.
I love it too,
I
man.
love the fact that our group is super diverse, not because it was the intention of it. No, it was diverse because I want your story here. You know, and you know, in the restaurant industry, it's a lot of broken people, a lot of people with substance abuse, a lot of people that made bad choices when they were younger, and now there's like they're trying to live in it, and they're like me. When I'm sitting here and I'm working at this church kitchen, it's a church. The irony of it was a church, and I felt like that was my way of paying penance. You know, for me, working in the restaurant, starting in the restaurant industry because, well, I'm not going to amount to much.
Right. You said something earlier that struck a chord with me, but I didn't want to cut you short. I interviewed Chef Cleophas Heffington. His last name is escaping me, but he's the chef de cuisine at Zach the Baker in Miami. And he was talking about his experience with the race. He's a black African-American gentleman. He was saying what he learned that the narrative he was telling in his head, that because he was black and because it's a white man's world, that he would never get the opportunity. He never went for the opportunity. And I think that's and I kind of heard that in your story, that there's a narrative that the generations before you told you that like it's going to be a white man's world. I think it's important that we break that narrative away, because from my perspective, the door is open. The opportunities are there. But I don't think people are willing to walk through because they don't think that it's actually open. Yeah. They've convinced themselves that there aren't opportunities.
So the way
am I wrong in saying that?
Well, in a way, yes and no.
Please correct me.
Yeah. So I think that there are two things I look at it. One, I think that the opportunities are there, but to even get to stand in line for the opportunity, sometimes you don't get in line. Like sometimes you don't get to be in that line for the opportunity, right? I think the other thing is the opportunity is there, and when you get in line and when you get up to the opportunity, right, it's kind of like, crap, no one looks like me. So I don't know, like I have all this feeling, all these things.
You don't feel like you belong.
Yes. Okay. It's scary both ways.
Yeah.
It's always scary. My thing is this. I go, hey, if you can, like, for example, you know, we've been very blessed to get this show, Feral, you know, outdoor channel. We're right now filming through season 3.
That's
know?
so crazy.
Yeah.
So we haven't even talked about that.
Oh yeah. So very blessed.
I'm sure that's going to help the brand.
Yeah, in a way, it's really fun to do it. But it was like, did the opportunity like just show up randomly? No. You know, I did a couple other little things that built up to it. Yes, but those other little things, to be completely honest, it was white producers who go, we're going to step outside of our comfort zone, or not, I'm going to say comfort zone. We're going to step outside of what we know, and we want to look for something different. So there are people who are advocates are saying, hey, we want to look for something, or people who are saying, hey, we want to see beyond the story here, you know, beyond the typical whatever story, right?
Yeah.
So
there's been a conscious effort to try to diversify media.
Yep, and not out of sense of like this, like, oh yeah, we have to because this is what we do. Blah,
we
blah,
have
no.
to because it's what people want us to do.
But is definitely because of this idea of, hey, like, we're really curious. Like, one thing that's really great is like the curiosity that comes with it is the whole idea of like they're storytellers.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like you get it,
it's
man.
It's a whole
like,
vertical that's untapped for them.
There's a storyteller, and you want to work with these storytellers, you know. And so I've been very blessed to have that. Now the other end is once you get there, what are you going to do with it? You know. So for example, for me, it was like it started out with me just literally doing like a dump and stir, like a little cooking gig. Yeah. And it was just listening to producers going, oh, okay, hey man, I understand that you're cutting this or doing it this way, but I need you to look at the camera when you do it. Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying? And for me, I have this like ferocious thing inside of me where I always want to learn something I don't know. I just want to learn it because it's just like my dad, his brain, he works like a reverse, like he can reverse engineer anything in his head and then rebuild it. He's just really good at that. In a way, I'm kind of like that where I'm like, I want to know how that works. Yeah. I want to know how to be a better TV host. I want to know, production. I want to know why it's done this way. Or I want to know when you talk about, oh, that's your 2-shot, that's your 3-shot, and that's your 1-shot. What do you mean by that?
I don't even know these things. Tell me, because I'm clearly learning too.
So instead of me just going on set and being like, oh, whatever, I'm like the cook dude, I'm like, I love standing right by the DP and understanding the kind of shots he's taking. Because then when I'm in the scene, I know
Director of production?
What's up?
DP?
Yeah, director of production. Okay. Yeah. Director of production, or the director or the showrunner or the producer saying, "Hey, this is what we want to talk about." Then I know when I'm in the shot, I'm going, "Oh, like if I move it this way, I'm gonna be cut out." So instead of me like him going, "Okay, hey, yeah, can we direct you back?" I'm already standing in that position. And it just makes the shooting smoother, the production smoother. And again, all that stuff is the technical aspect, but then like when I'm talking to the guide, I'm a Hmong kid talking to some dude named Dusty Crumb from the Everglades, and we're about to go out python hunting, right? I'm talking to Dusty Crumb. Dusty Crumb knows nothing about Hmong people. Dusty Crumb, you look at him and he is the Everglades, right?
Yeah.
But I get to talk to him about Hmong food. So at the end he goes, man, I'm just a hillbilly, and you guys are the hill people, so we're just a bunch of hillbillies and hill people sitting, hanging out together, cooking together. I get to share with him about how my father fought for this country and came here, and he's a true patriot and an American. I get to share with this dude who we probably wouldn't be sitting in the same bar together. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's what I love
But
about
food
the show.
brings people together.
Absolutely. And that's what I love about the show, and that's what I love about the shows we get to do, is constantly meeting people. And then people go, wait, so tell us about your story. And then we connect with our story, and then we're cooking food together.
So are you out finding these people who are the hunters of these not indigenous, but what's the
Invasive.
word? Invasive, thank you. Species, and then you get the species and you say, how do I chop this up and cook it up?
Yeah.
Are they helping you with the recipe, or is that all
No,
you?
so I come in with the recipe already, but then they show me how they cook it, and then I do my own.
I mean, I think with the amount of invasive species there in this country, I feel like we could feed people for free.
So yes, so we say it's invasive species that are detrimental to the environment they live in, or just species that most people won't have on their dinner table.
Yeah, species that are a problem because there was another species that kept them in check.
Yep.
Like white-tailed deer or something like that.
So we have an episode with white-tailed deer. We just finished we just started season 3, so we have alligator gar. That was pretty rad, dude. Oh. It's freaky, man.
What is gar?
Gar is like a long fish.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a freaking prehistoric looking
fish. Oh,
fish.
they're down in Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like Florida, Texas, in the bayou area.
Are you gonna do an episode on all those freaking fish in the Mississippi that like fly out of the water?
We already did that.
What are those things called?
It's called kopi, but kopi, but it's a Asian flying carp. Yeah, we just did that. That one will come out in the fall. Yeah, that one was crazy to watch.
The fish that are in that river could solve the hunger problem.
Dude, we broke that down. It was.
They're not the great. I heard they're not the best eating though.
Actually, they're not bad. If the way we make it and didn't tell you, you think you're having like perch or sunny or crappie.
Right. That's
it's lake fish.
Dude, I'm looking at the time. We're almost at 2 hours.
Oh, sorry, man.
No, don't be sorry. I'll go another hour if you want to, but I'm not going to do that to you. But is there anything we didn't discuss that did not come out of your story before we go to the speed round?
No, nothing really. I mean, it's we always talk about what we do. There's complexities in what we do, but at the end of the day, like, what we do is it's about the food, and it's about the gathering of the people around the food, and then we have been very blessed to do these media stuff. Been able to do TV stuff, been able to do podcasts. Like, we're very, very blessed to be able to do that.
Yeah. You also have white rice. You didn't mention that.
Oh yeah,
white on rice. Sorry.
Yeah, white on rice. So we don't do that anymore. That was kind of like the first one. That one was fun. Getting to know the community, getting to know the Twin Cities people here. But that one kind of got replaced with Hmonglish. Where it's like more focused. And I felt really just passionate about talking about.
So one thing I just want to reflect, man,
Mm-hmm.
and like what I really like about what you're doing. It's authentic. It's real. You're genuine. You know what matters, and you don't let people influence what matters to you. You're very grounded to your roots. I think that's something we can learn from you. I also love your diversification and your non-traditional approach to getting started.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I want to make sure my listeners, if you're looking to open a restaurant and you're trying to find capital to get your brick and mortar, consider this approach. If you are passionate enough about it to show up with where you just start, and if you have the passion, you'll be able to get there as long as you keep showing up over time, and you get better, and you start where you can, and you get a little bit better every time. And then the other thing too is like I love with Union Hmong Kitchen, you have 4 locations and none of them are a traditional location, in terms of brick and mortar. Like there are resources at your disposal. If you can develop a strong brand today, you don't need brick and mortar. You don't need physical things to grow, because there's digital assets. There's other ways to grow and other things you can do to monetize, and you're on your way to do that. And I think that the way you're seeing things is a very modern way to think about where the opportunity is. What's going through your mind?
Like, it's so true. Like, this is what I say. If you want to start, if you're listening, you're like, man, I want to start a pop-up. I want to start this food stuff. I say you start it and you work every position.
Yes.
So and also
There's only 3 positions, so it's not that hard to do.
and also on top of it, make it. It sounds really weird and counterintuitive, but make it hard for you, because you want to put yourself in a position where it says, on my hardest day, on the toughest day, this will be the toughest day ever. You know what I'm saying? Like it was so cool to be like, dude, the first time that I didn't have to answer my own email, I was like, what is this?
It gets easier. It only gets easier.
You know, and our director of catering and and special events, she like, okay, chef, here are 4 things that we got requested. Is there anything in there that you think that we shouldn't do? And I'm like, whoa, I used to have to think about those 4 things.
Right.
But like she like funneled it into 4.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I love the fact that it used to be so hard, and it gets a little easier and a little easier. And there's this quote I heard from a football coach. He says the 1%. He tells his guys, we'll go on the field today. We're practicing, boys. 1%. You have to just get 1% better.
Every day.
Yeah, I'm not asking you to be the best today.
Yep.
1% better. So if it's working on one little technique, if it means working on your get off, if it means working on your pivoting, if it means like for linemen, making sure you're getting your hand under that pad, 1%. And that's kind of what we did. We're just like, okay, 1%.
It all compounds.
Absolutely. Yep. And so that's what I would say. And in that whole thing where it's like, just do it. Nike took the line, but just do it. Just go.
Yeah, just start.
And if you're going to fail.
Yep.
Failure is not what we should avoid. Failure only tells us like, hey man, that didn't work. Let's, come back, refigure that out.
Yes, man. I've loved this conversation.
Yeah.
Chef, thank you so much. One more quick break to thank our sponsors, and we're going to bust out a speed round.
Cool.
We have to interrupt today's video to let you know that right now, Restaurant Systems Pro is offering a no strings attached 60-day trial that will help you improve your systems, increase your profit, and find better work-life balance. All you have to do is click the link below.
Okay. We are back. And the first question I have for you is, what is your it factor? A habit, a trait, a characteristic you believe most contributes to your success?
Oh my gosh. Like one word only, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I guess it's pretty obvious, but I would say parents. Parents, mom, dad. That's one. That's the 2 words, but yeah.
What is your biggest weakness?
Self-doubt. Fake it till you make it kind of deal.
Yeah. If you resonate with that answer, if you're listening to this, 3 books: The Practicing Mind, Fully Engaged, and It's Just a Thought by Tom Sterner. Just recently had him on the show.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the things you're talking about, just starting, he gets into the psychology of that. It's super powerful. What is one question you ask or thing you look for when you're growing your team?
Drive.
How do you know they have drive?
Yep. Like, how do I know?
Yeah.
This sounds really bad. It's probably not the best thing for working, but it's like you don't turn it off.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I know that there's a lot of work-life balance kind of whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Share one code of conduct or behavior you teach your team, a way to be, a way to act.
Integrity. And this is what I mean by integrity. Integrity comes from an old medieval word that they used. The word integrity back in the medieval time, they used it as a word for ironworking. So basically, you put the metal, you put it in the hot fire, and it gets red hot, and then you take the hammer and you try to hit the hammer to mold the metal, right? But if that metal broke while you're hitting it, they would say the integrity is weak. So when I say the word integrity, what I mean integrity is how you act in the moments of hardship, in the hardest time. Do you stand strong and not break when that hammer hits you, or do you break? That's what I mean by the word integrity.
I love it, man. What is one uncommon standard of service you teach your team? So something that's common within the 4 walls of your restaurants or your pop-ups, but not common throughout the industry, to go above and beyond guest expectation.
I would say listen to your guests. Like, what are they really, and then when I say listen, I don't mean talking about just like verbal listening. It's all about the nonverbal, right?
Yeah.
Most people walk up to our menu board, they haven't been here before.
Right.
So listen by watching their nonverbals.
Right. Body language,
Yeah.
posturing,
Yep.
like
And
mirror, what is it? Mirror, mirror, I can't think of it. Anyway, keep going. Sorry.
No, but you know how like when you walk into a restaurant, you open the menu, and you're not sure what anything in the menu is, and you're just like, how do you help our guests to be comfortable?
Yes, I love it. I pass over this question, so I'm just going to ask it now. What is your biggest challenge today?
Money.
How are you overcoming it?
Embracing the reports that our CEO gives us. My college mentor always said to me, reality is your friend. And getting these budget reports and getting these, all the money aspect, like spreadsheet, I used to be like, but I embrace it because that's reality.
Yeah.
Reality is your friend. We can talk great about expanding and $500,000, blah, 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 blah. But if we're not literally looking at this is our reality, this is what we have on cash on hand, then nothing's going to happen,
What is one book that's a must read to make us a better person or a restaurant owner?
Shoot, I totally forgot. So I just got I don't have time to read, so I listen to books. Is that okay?
Yeah, I'm a huge audiobook listener.
Yeah. In the Weeds.
Okay.
The dude Tom, I forget his last name, but he was the director producer for Bourdain, and so his whole thing was, his whole thing is about, he gives you a look in the life of Bourdain, and it's not a sexy life, and it's really, really good.
Yeah. It's called In the Weeds, Around the World and Behind the Scenes with Anthony Bourdain by Tom Vitale.
Tom Vitale, yeah.
And I'm no Anthony Bourdain, but as somebody who travels the country to get interviews and to talk to people, I that lifestyle, it's not all glitz and glamour.
No.
When you're constantly going and you're alone in strange places. I didn't read this book or anything, but when I watched the documentary, I was like, oh shit, I kind of can relate to Anthony Bourdain a little bit. Like I said, I'm no Anthony Bourdain, but
yeah, no, I get it, man. Like the same thing. I'd say I'm no Anthony Bourdain, but we travel for our show a lot, and go to different places and some of those hotel rooms, like you shot the best episode. You're like, what the frick? That was amazing. And you go in those hotel rooms are super lonely. Yeah. And it's dark, and you don't have anybody to share it with.
Exactly, dude.
And be like, oh my gosh, like I think I did a really good job.
Did it really happen if no one else was there to witness it?
Yeah, and the production guys, like they're great, but it's like they're constantly working. So after we're done breaking down production, they're going back to the gear room and they're unloading production,
moving files around, charging batteries.
Yeah,
dude. I think
a lot of friends think like I just go to these different places and go to all these amazing restaurants. Like, nah, dude. You get room service order, or we're ordering from a place down by the street. It was like soggy tacos and stuff like that.
I had Chipotle last night.
Yeah, man. Yeah. But on top of it too, I think Tom holds nothing back about Bourdain, because I think Bourdain is seen as two kinds of person. They're seen as the god,
right? Anthony
Bourdain, the god, which almost every young cook is like, oh my gosh, that's our guy, or he's seen as this evil villain. Just like, like he monetized and manipulated all these platforms that he used to poop on. Right. Yeah. And so you see that, but then, man, it's, I don't know. It was incredible.
Right. Great. I have not read that one. I got a lot of writing to do, or driving. So that's an Audible too.
Yeah, yeah. Sick. And Tom Vitale reads it himself.
I love when that happens. All right. What is one thing you feel restaurateurs don't do well enough or often enough?
I mean, it's not one word, but I would say, and I'm included in this, I'm saying ask yourself the question, what does my community need? And not like, what does the Hmong community need? Like, what does the community here in the Uptown need? What does the community in North Loop need? When we open a place in Northeast, what does this community need?
And be the solution? Be
part of the solution, I would say. Be part of the solution.
Be the change you want to see in the world.
Sure. So that's a T-shirt or something like that.
It's a little Gandhi quote.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. What is one piece of technology you've recently adopted within the four walls of your business that's having a huge impact on communication, efficiency, profitability, anything along those lines?
Slack.
Ooh, nice. How are you using it? How has that impacted?
So we have different kind of like conditions of returning messages. So it's like, if it's email, 24 hours. It's Slack, it's this amount. It's text, this. It's call. Like if it's a call, like right away, like ESP. Yeah. But Slack has really helped build, like, if it's a Slack thing, it's like that's a work thing. And we're talking about work only on Slack. You know, so if it's a text thing, it's like, oh, it could be personal, or it could be like, hey, quickly, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, the Slack thing is like organization of all the different things we're doing. So honestly, it's like because all these different avenues we have.
Yeah, it's segmenting the conversation.
Yep.
So you don't have to go searching in like
Yep.
oceans of context
Yeah,
and
yeah.
text. It's in this thread.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's funny because it's like we're restaurant people, dude.
Yeah.
To use Slack, it's like that's what 3M and Target use. You
Right.
know what I'm saying?
It's a great tool.
Yeah. We're like restaurant
and it's free
people.
to use at the
Yeah,
beginning.
yeah.
Eventually, you have to pay for it. Next question is, what is one? Oh, sorry. Did I miss one? Jared, you know what to do. Editor's great.
Yeah.
All right, this is actually the last
Okay.
question. Are you ready for it? If you got the news, you'd be leaving this world tomorrow. All the memories of you, your work, and your restaurants would be lost with your departure, with the exception of 3 pieces of wisdom you could leave behind for the good of humanity and your legacy. What would those 3 pieces of wisdom be?
I would say know where you come from.
1.
Unconditional love.
2.
And then 3 would be redemption. Like nobody's ever too far from not being able to be redeemed.
I love that.
Yeah, like
Awesome.
the nerd side of me. I heard it once said, the comic book nerd inside of me is the reason why Batman doesn't kill people. He beats them up pretty bad, but even the bad people, he doesn't kill
He
them.
doesn't use guns.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah.
Because the reason why is Batman still believes that everybody's redeemable.
I love that.
And it's just this hit thing where I think my parents really showed that to me. It's like, no matter what happens, like you're our son, and you always have a home. And that, because people fear, like, oh, when people hear that, they're going to take advantage of it. I'm like, that's your fear, man.
Yeah.
But when I hear that, there's this
Hope. Yeah.
Redemption is hope.
Yeah.
And if we can't talk about hope in the crappy world we live in, like, what's the point?
What is a leader?
I don't know.
I heard this from a professor of mine.
Mhm.
It's a dealer of hope.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome stuff, man. I've loved today's conversation. You were great. We wrap up every chat by calling somebody out. Who's somebody you respect and admire in the restaurant industry? If you found out they were a guest on the show, you would absolutely be tuning in. Who's that person for you?
Alex Robert.
Alex Robert. Where is he based? Or she?
Yeah. Alex is Alma Brasa.
Alma
Yeah.
Brasa.
Yeah.
Maybe
So
we can
he's
connect while I'm in town.
yeah.
Awesome. And how can we connect, man? If we really enjoyed today's conversation, if we were inspired by today's
Mhm.
conversation, maybe we want to do our own pop-ups, and maybe you might be
Mhm.
able to offer us some advice. What's the best way to connect? Or maybe we want to come work for you.
Yeah. So probably Instagram is the best.
He does respond. That's how I reached out.
Oh yeah, I do respond. I would say Instagram at at Hilltribe MN, or at Union Kitchen, or my personal one's like at Yia Vang 70.
And this is episode 1002. Head over to restaurantunstoppable.com/1002. We'll have a summary of today's discussion over there, as well as any links to tools, services, or books recommended, and how to connect with Chef Yia Vang. You were awesome, Chef Yia. I enjoyed today's conversation.
Thanks, Eric. Man, thanks for coming by, bro.
Now is where I say there is no questioning. You are unstoppable.
Thank you.
Cheers.